Chapter 209. When the 5 signs of heaven's decay occurred in a plane, various calamities would occur. At the same time, various ancient secrets would appear. For example, great tombs of powerhouses, ancient ruins, or even supreme inheritances. Countless terrifying inheritances would appear, and there might even be inheritances of gods. At that time, the entire continent's world energy would skyrocket. At the same time, countless powerful peerless geniuses would suddenly appear on the continent. With so many heroes competing, the entire continent would fall into chaos. The appearance of these ruins and inheritances would naturally be a great fortune for the martial god continent. If the martial god continent could absorb all these inheritances and ruins, the entire continent would usher in earth-shattering changes. Using these inheritances and ruins, the strength of the martial god continent would rapidly increase, and its strength would increase by 100 times or even 1,000 times. The number of cultivators would also increase, and the strength of the powerhouses would also increase. In the end, the entire martial god continent's ranking in the 3,000 worlds would rapidly rise. As the number of cultivators increased and the powerhouses became stronger, the world's ranking would also begin to rise. Unfortunately, when the 5 signs of heaven's decay occurred, the world barrier would disappear. At that time, cultivators from other worlds could enter the martial god continent at will. And the great fortune of the martial god continent would naturally be snatched by the powerhouses of other worlds. Although the 5 signs of heaven's decay was a great fortune, it was also a great calamity. When the world barrier disappeared, the imprint left behind by the Supreme Being would be affected. At that time, even the supreme powerhouses of the Emperor Realm would descend on the martial god continent. After all, no one would be able to resist the temptation of the Supreme Being's inheritance appearing. Even the top 10 worlds of the 3,000 worlds would not be able to resist sending people to snatch the supreme opportunities to replenish their own world's world energy. Therefore, the 9-headed Emperor had such an idea. When the martial god continent experienced the 5 signs of heaven's decay, the world barrier would disappear, and the Supreme Being's imprint would lose its effect. He would directly descend on the Langya Holy Land and destroy it. At the same time, he could also snatch all kinds of opportunities and fortunes in the martial god continent, increasing the strength of the 9-headed Divine Dragon clan again. After knowing this, the 9-headed Divine Dragon clan leader became so excited. If they could obtain great fortune in the martial god continent this time, their strength would rapidly increase. The strength of the 9-headed mystical Flood Dragon clan would increase rapidly, and their status in the Divine Demon continent would rise again. They might even become the strongest clan in the Divine Demon continent. Ancestor, is what you said true? Hearing the 9-headed sovereign's words, the 9-headed Divine Dragon clan leader's face was filled with excitement. He had been stuck in the half-step Emperor realm for who knew how long, and with his talent, he would never be able to break through to the Emperor realm. But now, the martial god continent's Deva's decay was about to descend. This was simply a great opportunity for him. As long as he obtained a supreme opportunity on martial god continent, he would be able to break through to the Emperor realm. At that time, it would not be a problem for him to traverse the 3,000 worlds. One had to know that even in the top-ranked Black-Yellow continent, an Emperor Realm master was a rare peerless master. The Emperor Realm. His vital signs had surpassed everything in the past and reached a new height. This was a supreme realm that countless martial artists wanted to reach but could never reach. That's right, so you have to make arrangements for this matter. You can't be careless. As for Patriarch Qing Qiu, I'll talk to him personally. When the time comes, our 2 clans will join forces and will be able to reap more benefits from the chaotic martial god continent. The 9-headed sovereign spoke again. His golden eyes flickered as plans emerged one after another. As for those ants in Langya Holy Land, I'll personally destroy them. Demon King Jiao, his favorite descendant, had died at the hands of Langya Holy Land. Then he had to destroy Langya Holy Land to avenge Demon King Jiao. Yes, grandson obeys. The 9-headed Divine Dragon clan leader said as he bowed and slowly left the hall. He had to make arrangements for everything, especially for him to break through to the Saint Emperor Realm. Because he knew very well that whether he could become an Emperor Realm master or not depended on this. At the same time, the same scene was happening in the other continents of the 3,000 worlds. In the Heavenly Monster continent, the Heavenly Paradise continent, the Immortal Cultivation continent, the Heavenly Dragon continent, the Divine Phoenix continent, and so on. In this universe, ancient existences had awakened in various worlds, giving out orders one after another. Every world wanted a piece of the pie to strengthen themselves or their subordinates. All kinds of ancient existences were restless, waiting for the arrival of the Great Tribulation. As one of the top 10 ancient worlds, the martial god continent was now the weakest. If the 5 decay of the heavens happened in the black-yellow continent, only the other 9 top-ranked worlds would send people there. The other 2,990 great worlds would be difficult to contact because the black-yellow continent was too powerful. Great worlds without a strong foundation would not dare to touch it at all. Just like that, the entire universe was quietly changing. Outside the martial god continent, countless powerful auras were constantly shuttling back and forth, as if waiting for something. As for the people in the martial god continent, they did not know about the arrival of the Great Tribulation. Langya Holy Land, Langya Sacred Realm. This was the place where the Holy Master and Supreme Elder of Langya Holy Land were in seclusion. The world's Yuan Qi was extremely rich and amazing. At this moment, Tao Xian and the Supreme Elders were gathered together. Below them was an endless amount of primordial stones. At a glance, there were hundreds of billions of primordial stones. This was only 1/10 of the source stones accumulated in the entire Langya Sacred Realm. The source stones, which were extremely precious to countless rogue cultivators, were placed here like ordinary stones. Of course, these source stones did not belong to the Langya Holy Land. They were compensation from the other 3 holy lands. Tao Xian had punished them. Now, even the Holy Master of the 3 holy lands had fallen. Faced with the request of the Langya Holy Land, they naturally did not dare to refuse. They had almost used up all their wealth to satisfy the Langya Holy Land. Then, the Holy Lord of Langya and Tao Xian also announced that they would not pursue the matter of besieging the Langya Holy Land in the future. At this moment, all the source stones were piled up here, placed under the Langya Mountain River diagram. It's about time. Whether he can break through to the 4th level of the Dharma Laksana realm in a month depends on these source stones. At this moment, Tao Xian spoke, looking at Jun Haoyan in the picture scroll. After dealing with the aftermath of the battle, Tao Xian discussed with the Supreme Elders. They wanted to help Jun Haoyan break through to the immortal longevity realm in the shortest time possible. They would not hesitate to use the power of the entire Holy Land. Everyone in the Langya Holy Land hoped that Jiang Chen could grow stronger as soon as possible. Moreover, Tao Xian had read the letter of the Lord of Langya. He had a premonition that something big was going to happen in the martial god continent. Although he did not know why, Tao Xian understood it very well. It would be very difficult for him to protect the great Langya Holy Land with his current strength. However, if Jun Haoyan could grow stronger, it would be completely different. Only the 5th level of the Immortal Realm experts could barely activate the power of a supreme weapon. Therefore, Jun Haoyan did not reject Tao Xian's suggestion. He always remembered what Jun Moyo said to him. The martial god continent would face a great calamity. People from various worlds would descend upon the continent. At that time, the 5th level of the Immortal Realm would only be able to protect himself. Therefore, there was only one reason why Jun Haoyan was in danger. He wanted to break through the barrier of the primordial spirit Dharma idol within a month. Become an immortal. Become an eternal giant. Chapter 2, Kunlun's Holy Son. Haoyan, are you ready? At this moment, the voice of the Holy Lord Tao Xian was heard. At this moment, Tao Xian had already prepared all the required Yuan stones. Next, he only needed to activate the energy within the Yuan stones and channel it into the Langya Mountain and River diagram. In fact, the supreme weapon of the Langya Holy Land, the Langya Mountain and River diagram's greatest use was not for attacking. Its greatest use was to assist in cultivation. Within the Langya Mountain and River diagram, there was a world of its own. There were mountains, rivers, the earth, the sun, the moon, the sea of stars, and endless Yuan Qi and the laws of heaven and earth. As long as enough energy was channeled in, the effect of the Langya Mountain and River diagram could be activated. After the 3 holy lands had compensated the Langya Holy Land, the Langya Holy Land was now rich with Yuan stones. With these Yuan stones, Tao Xian could activate the terrifying energy within the diagram and channel it all into Jun Haoyan's body, allowing him to improve greatly within a short period of time. He could even break through a few realms. This was not a problem at all. Moreover, under the control of him and the Supreme Elders, this energy would only be more terrifying. Now, the Langya Holy Land could be said to be doing all they could to increase Jun Haoyan's cultivation at all costs. After hearing Tao Xian's words, Jun Haoyan nodded and slowly closed his eyes. He did not choose to reject Tao Xian's gift. The current him had an extremely strong foundation and did not need to accumulate more. Previously, Jun Haoyan had entered the immortal state in advance because of the 18 Supremacy's great salvation immeasurable Sarira. Although he had not truly comprehended it, his physical body and primordial spirit were enough to completely control it. At this moment what he lacked was that unparalleled power. In that case let's begin. Seeing Jun Haoyan nod, Tao Xian turned his head and said to the Supreme Elders. After a while, all the Supreme Elders sat cross-legged on the ground. Waves of vast true vitality surged out of their bodies and channeled into the endless Yuan stones. Every Supreme Elder performed a series of powerful hand seals and channeled the energy in their bodies into the Yuan stones. Bus. In an instant the entire Langya Holy Land shone brightly and a boundless pressure swept out. In the next moment, all the Yuan stones disappeared and turned into an extremely pure energy. Like a vast divine light, it formed the shape of a heavenly dragon. Such a terrifying amount of Yuan stones was a huge sum of money even for the Holy Land. At this moment, the amount of energy gathered from so many essence stones was shocking to the eye. It could even turn a barren land into a cultivation holy land with dense Yuan Qi. Even an immortal state elite could not possess so many Yuan stones. In the next moment, all the energy surged into the Langya Mountain River illustration. At this moment, Jun Haoyan could only feel that the Yuan Qi around him had become extremely dense. It had even condensed into liquid. Moreover, the Yuan Qi was endless. It seemed that he could never absorb far. Then, without hesitation, he channeled his energy and activated the demonic heaven-devouring skill. Then, the figure of a demon appeared behind him. The demon seemed to have walked out of hell and opened its mouth to swallow. In the next moment, the endless Yuan Qi was absorbed by the demon. Rumble. At this moment, within the space of the Langya Mountain River illustration, endless lightning flashed and the mountains and rivers shook. The entire world was rumbling. At this moment, Jun Haoyan was absorbing the Yuan Qi in the void crazily. The energy in his body was also growing stronger. At this moment, his body was surrounded by endless Yuan Qi. It was as if his entire body was about to be upgraded. The golden ancient mammoths were also roaring continuously. It was as if they had come from the primordial era, suppressing the world. The ancient mammoths in Jun Haoyan's body were awakening crazily at this moment. Vast and terrifying energy swept through every corner of his body. His primordial spirit was sitting cross-legged under the Bodhi tree. With the continuous influx of energy, the tiny primordial spirit that had just grown to 2 inches and 9 inches was also affected. It kept growing taller. This was a change in the essence of the primordial spirit. Once it succeeded, it meant that Jun Haoyan was constantly becoming stronger. At the same time, his physical body and true yuan were also increasing at a terrifying rate. The furnace that was condensed in his dantian was burning fiercely, refining all kinds of superpowers. It could be said that Jun Haoyan's strength was increasing crazily. Within this period of time, he might really have the possibility of breaking through to the immortal state. It's effective. However, the energy required for the Holy Sun to break through is too terrifying. It's more than 10 times that of an ordinary primordial spirit Dharma power. One of the Supreme Elders said after a moment of contemplation. The others nodded one after another. The greater the commotion caused by Jun Haoyan's cultivation, the more shocked they were. No wonder he could be ranked as the strongest prodigy in Eastern Wilderness. Who could compare with such a terrifying foundation? If that's the case, it's certain that the Holy Sun will become the strongest in Eastern Wilderness, a Grand Elder said. A Great Elder said. Because the power in Jun Haoyan's body was enough to make him feel terrified. Not necessarily. It's said that the one from the Kunlun sacred ground is also very powerful. His talent is even comparable to the Linglong sacred leader. More importantly, during this period of time, I received news that the Holy Sun of Kunlun is condensing a terrifying body constitution. At this moment, another Grand Elder spoke up. An extremely terrifying body constitution? The Holy Sun of the Chaos Sacred Ground, He Wujiang, was condensing a terrifying body constitution. What's going on? Another Grand Elder asked. Now, only the Holy Sun of Kunlun could stop the Holy Sun of Haoyan from becoming the strongest in Eastern Wilderness. It said that the Kunlun sacred ground helped him condense the same body constitution as the Prime of Kunlun, which can suppress the Linglong sacred leader in the future. The Grand Elder said. This was the news he received, and it could be said that it was very true. When the people present heard this, they were all shocked. The same body constitution as the Kunlun the Arch. That was the primogenitor of the Kunlun sacred ground. He achieved Tao in 300,000 years and pushed the Wuxian continent to the top 20 of the 3,000 worlds with his strength alone. It was said that the Kunlun the Arch had an unparalleled body constitution and was a terrifying existence who had conquered the Xianhuang continent. The current Holy Sun of Kunlun was actually condensing the same body constitution as that supreme existence. If he succeeded, wouldn't he be able to completely suppress the Holy Sun of Haoyan? If he grew up, even the Linglong sacred leader would be restricted by him? That was very terrifying. The Grand Elders lowered their heads and pondered. Don't be distracted. At this moment Tao Xian's voice sounded. When the Grand Elders raised their heads to look at the painting, they were all shocked. Chapter 210. At that moment, all the Supreme Elders turned to look at Jun Haotian. The scene that happened in the Langya Mountain River diagram made them endlessly shocked. Behind Jun Haotian, an unparalleled demonic figure stood between heaven and earth. He held 3,000 worlds in his hands and stood proudly. The boundless heaven and earth essence qi in the void rushed madly into Jun Haotian's body. Jun Haotian absorbed all the heaven and earth essence qi without wasting a single bit. A peerless demon lord shrouded in demonic qi. Golden qi and blood scattered in all directions. One black, one gold. The two reflected each other and formed a special scene. At that moment, Jun Haotian's body exuded a godlike aura. All the Supreme Elders stared at Jun Haotian with their eyes wide open. They could see that in Jun Haotian's body, giant elephant seeds were awakening one after another. They carried boundless golden suns on their backs and stepped on a boundless golden hell. There were also 12 demon gods accompanying him. There were also Buddhist venerables chanting Buddhist scriptures in front of him. Countless strange phenomena appeared, making Jun Haotian look like a god descending to the mortal world. Like a supreme god walking out of a myth, his entire body exuded an unparalleled and shocking brilliance. This time Jun Haotian was like the son of God. The moment he grew up would be the moment he ruled over the world. What a terrifying power. What kind of power is this? Is the Holy Sun cultivating some terrifying divine power? This is too scary. So many strange phenomena have appeared, and each of them is extraordinary. Each of them can shock the world. At this moment, these phenomenons that are enough to shock the world are all concentrated on the saint. Don't you feel that the Holy Sun's divine body seems to have changed? It's as if it has been upgraded. Could it be that the Holy Sun has evolved into a divine body? At that moment, all the Supreme Elders looked at Jun Haotian in disbelief. It was like a dream. They could sense the extraordinariness of the strange phenomenon around Jun Haotian, and they could clearly sense the intense pressure brought about by Jun Haotian's physique. At this moment, Jun Haotian's body was emitting a resplendent light. His entire body seemed to be translucent, and every inch of his flesh was emitting a shocking brilliance. It was as if he was the son of the heavens, a perfect body personally created by the heavens. His mission after coming to this world was to rule the world and suppress the present. His body was like an eternally indestructible star. Nothing in the world could destroy his body. I wonder what realm Haotian will reach after this round of mutual training. Hearing the words of the Supreme Elders, the Holy Lord of Langya, Tao Xian, slowly said. Naturally, he also thought of the Holy Son of the Kunlun Holy Land. The ambition of the Holy Son of Kunlun was so great that he wanted to condense the same physique as the sovereign of Kunlun. That kind of physique could be said to be invincible, even in the Trichiliacosm. Thinking of this, Jun Haotian could not help but sigh. The Kunlun Holy Land was still as powerful as before. Even the Kunlun exquisite tribulation could not shake its foundation. Although the Langya Holy Land's strength was not bad, it was still inferior to the Kunlun Holy Land. Looking at Jun Haotian, Tao Xian could not help but have a thought. One day in the future, under the leadership of the Holy Son of Haotian, the Langya Holy Land might be able to replace the Kunlun Holy Land and become the new #1 Holy Land of the human race. However, Tao Xian also knew that it was undoubtedly extremely difficult to achieve this goal. However, as long as the Holy Son of Haotian could grow, it would definitely be possible. I wonder who will be the #1 in Eastern Wilderness after this round of seclusion. Let's wait and see. I wonder if Haotian will be able to completely take over the title of Kunlun Holy Son of Eastern Wilderness after this round of seclusion. Thinking of this, Tao Xian could not help but feel a little excited. If the Holy Son of Haotian overtook the Holy Son of Kunlun, it would also indicate that the Langya Holy Land had taken the first step in suppressing the Kunlun Holy Land. Thinking of this, Tao Xian could not help but ask a few of the Grand Supreme Elders to increase the amount of primordial qi they channeled to Jun Haotian with all their might. After this round of seclusion, if his strength could reach the immortal longevity realm, the title of #1 in Eastern Wilderness would belong to none other than him. At this moment, in the Langya landscape illustration, Jun Haotian's primordial spirit had completely grown to a height of 3 inches in his body. This meant that his cultivation had reached the 3rd tier of the Dharma phase primordial spirit, and the ancient mammoths in his body were also crazily awakening. At this level, the ancient mammoths in Jun Haoyan's body had reached 1.2 million. They lined up together and roared in unison. Their roars were unparalleled in the world, especially the hell under their feet. It looked like it was real, and it set off the strength of the ancient mammoths. It also set off Jun Haoyan's supreme status like a real god. However, breaking into the primordial spirit Dharma phase primordial spirit was just the beginning. At this moment, the next step was the most important. Tao Xian could maintain the Langya landscape illustration for a month with all his strength. During this month, Jun Haoyan could advance without any worries. Therefore, at this moment, he did not do anything else but crazily increase his cultivation. Time passed just like this. With every minute and second, Jun Haoyan became stronger than before. Desolate suspended sea, Linglong sacred ground. Ninth heaven Linglong Palace, Supreme Hall. The number one expert of Eastern Wilderness, Linglong sacred leader, sat on the throne in the void. Beautiful, sacred, majestic, earth-shaking. All kinds of auras emerged from her body, and each of them had a terrifying power. No one knew how powerful Linglong's sacred leader was. Even the other sacred leaders did not know. This guy is really beyond my imagination. At this moment, Linglong's sacred leader spoke, and a smile appeared on her beautiful face. She had just heard the news. Before the battle at Langya's sacred ground, Linglong's sacred leader was not in Wuxia continent. With her ability, it was not a problem for her to travel the 3,000 worlds. However, she did not expect to hear the news as soon as she returned. It was really shocking. Linglong's sacred leader Luo Qingxue was below her. Her face was also full of surprise. It could not be helped. Jun Haoyan's deeds were really earth-shattering. The three sacred grounds would not be able to recover without thousands of years. If not for the supreme weapon suppressing them, they would probably be removed from the 7 sacred grounds of the human race. I heard that Langya's sacred ground is going to hold a grand event, and all forces in Wuxia continent are invited to participate, Luo Qingxue said. Luo Qingxue said. What she meant was simple. She wanted to know if the Linglong sacred land would participate in this event. When the time comes, you should go personally. I have more important things to deal with, Linglong's sacred leader said. She did not plan to go to Langya's sacred ground personally. This was because she had a feeling that Wuxia continent's 5 decay was about to descend. Even she had to be prepared. Forget it. When the time comes, you should go with my clone. Perhaps we will ask Hao Tian's holy son for help in the future. However, after saying that, Linglong's sacred leader immediately denied it. Luo Qingxue was shocked by his decision to send his incarnation there. Linglong's sacred leader was the most powerful person in Eastern Wilderness. She did not care about anything, let alone this grand event. However, because of Hao Tian's holy son, she made such a decision. Although it was just a clone, it meant a lot. No one would ignore it. Especially Linglong's sacred leader's words. In the future, she might ask Hao Tian's holy son for help. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Luo Qingxue knew how terrifying her master's strength was. The legends that were circulating outside were enough to shock people. She was the most amazing genius in Wuxia continent in the past 50,000 years. In a short time she had reached the immortal realm. Now she was recognized as the most powerful person in Eastern Wilderness by all the warriors. Of course, the entire Wuxia continent knew this. As Linglong's sacred leader's personal disciple, Luo Qingxue naturally knew more about her master. She was very clear that her master's strength had reached a terrifying level. In the future, she might not be able to break through the void and become a supreme god. However, Luo Qingxue had absolute confidence in her master to become a supreme god. In Luo Qingxue's eyes, it was something that countless peerless geniuses could not achieve. If others knew about this, they would definitely be shocked. That was the position of a supreme god. It was not something that could be achieved so easily. Moreover, in Luo Qingxue's eyes, her master had always been domineering. Even a man could not have that kind of aura. Furthermore, with Linglong's sacred leader's pride, almost no man could enter her eyes. However, today Linglong's sacred leader actually said that she might ask Great Heaven's Holy Son for help in the future. How could she be so sure that Great Heaven's Holy Son would definitely rule the world in the future? It should be known that even the person from Kunlun's sacred ground who was about to condense the same supreme body constitution as Kunlun Prime, Linglong's sacred leader did not take him seriously at all. Perhaps in Linglong's sacred leader's eyes, she was already invincible. No matter how strong Kunlun's holy son was, she had no scruples. Even if Kunlun's holy son had condensed the same supreme body constitution, he could not threaten her. That was why Luo Qingxue was shocked by Linglong's sacred leader's evaluation of Great Heaven's Holy Sun. Even someone like her would ask Great Heaven's Holy Sun for help in the future. How powerful would Great Heaven's Holy Sun be in the future? Just as Luo Qingxue was thinking about this, Linglong's sacred leader, who was sitting on the throne, spoke again. "How's the matter that I asked you to do?" Hearing this, Luo Qingxue replied respectfully, "Master, it's almost done. However, Master, is the calamity that you mentioned really coming?" Luo Qingxue asked slowly. She had heard from Linglong's sacred leader that the Wuxian continent was about to face a calamity. According to Linglong's sacred leader's description, in this calamity, even the sacred ground that possessed the supreme weapon would not be spared. That was enough to show how terrifying this calamity was. Linglong's sacred leader's order was for Luo Qingxue to prepare for the calamity in advance. However, Luo Qingxue was very doubtful about the calamity that Linglong's sacred leader had mentioned. Would such a calamity really come? Although it's a calamity, it's also a good opportunity. I've been waiting for this moment. At that moment, Linglong's sacred leader squinted her eyes slightly. Her eyes seemed to see through everything as she looked into the distance. It was as if she could see what was happening in the other great worlds. "Hurry up and get ready. Pass down my orders. Before the Langya Grand Meeting begins, all disciples are not allowed to leave." After saying that, Linglong's sacred leader's figure disappeared. Her aura disappeared from the entire world in an instant. Luo Qingxue bowed slightly and immediately went to prepare. At the same time, the major forces in the Wuxian continent were also preparing something. It was the Tai Grand Meeting that would take place a month later. Almost all the major forces would attend. The Langya sacred ground that had killed 3 sacred leaders and possessed 2 supreme weapons as its foundation. Many forces had secretly called it the first sacred ground of the human race. The Kunlun sacred ground had been too low-key recently. No matter what happened, it did not appear. Under such circumstances, time passed bit by bit. In the blink of an eye, 20 days had passed. At that moment, in the Langya sacred ground, Jun Haoyin sat cross-legged in the Langya mountain river painting. His golden blood aura was no longer vibrating. Instead, it slowly turned from golden to blood red. Although it was only a little, it could still be seen clearly. The reddish blood was as clear as crystal, emitting a dreamy glow. The primordial qi and power contained in it were even more shocking. At that moment, a drop of Jun Haoyin's blood could sink into the river and turn it into a land of destiny. And the creatures in the river would be affected by this drop of blood and directly become spiritual monsters. This was Jun Haoyin's blood. It was almost divine blood. Jun Haoyin's sacred body had already transformed to a certain extent and was beginning to transform into a divine body. However, it was a pity that the amount of energy required to transform into a divine body was too terrifying. So until now, Jun Haoyin had not transformed into a divine body. However, he did not care. Jun Haoyin's current body constitution was not what he wanted to improve. It was his own cultivation. In his dantian, under the 7-treasure Bodhi tree, a small golden primordial spirit sat cross-legged. This small golden primordial spirit had already reached 10 inches and 9 parts. 10 inches and 9 parts meant that Jun Haoyin's primordial spirit had reached the peak of the Transcendence 10th realm. One more step and he would be able to break through to the immortal longevity realm. In 20 days, his primordial spirit had reached the peak of the Transcendence 10th realm from the 2nd realm. This progress not only shocked him but it also shocked Tao Xian and the others. It was really too terrifying. This was the first time they had seen such a cultivation speed. His primordial spirit has reached the peak of the Transcendence 10th realm. He will be able to break through to the immortal realm soon. "This is really terrifying," a Grand Elder said and shook his head. He was a little stunned. He had wanted to say that this was crazy but he swallowed it back. "It's a pity that we have used up all of our primordial stones. Moreover, he has reached the limit of his cultivation," another Grand Elder said. He looked at the primordial stones that had disappeared below and sighed. The immortal 5th realm was a qualitative change. It was not something that could be compensated with energy. There are still 10 days before the grand meeting begins. Let's let him cultivate on his own. Tao Xian stood up. He knew that there was nothing he could do to help Jun Haoyin. The path of cultivation had to be walked by oneself. Others could not help you all the time. The Grand Elders nodded, then got up and went to prepare for the grand meeting. The Langya painting of mountains and rivers was still in operation, helping Jun Haoyin to understand heaven and earth and absorb the boundless energy. All kinds of energy poured into his body, not a bit of it going to waste. At this time, Jun Haoyan's primordial mammoths had reached 3,200,000. He was more than halfway to the peak of the third realm of the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoth. However, 4 million primordial mammoth seeds was the limit of Jun Haoyan's primordial spirit Dharma idol. Jun Haoyan believed that if he broke through to the immortal longevity realm, he would be able to reach the peak of the third realm of the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoth. At that time, he would be able to reach the peak of the third realm of the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoth. Just as Tao Xian and the others left, the Langya painting of mountains and rivers once again shot out boundless light. Jun Haoyan, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly opened his eyes. Chapter 211. At this moment, the whole world seemed to have stopped in front of Jun Haoyan's eyes. Looking at the scene in the Langya Mountain River diagram, Jun Haoyan fell into an epiphany, as if he was about to transcend. This was especially the case for Jun Haoyan's physical body right now, which was giving off an extremely horrifying aura. It was as if his every move could shake heaven and earth and move the sun, moon, and stars. This was the indestructible heavenly god body. Immortal, indestructible, and immortal. Moreover, it was the indestructible heavenly god body that was cultivated in an unparalleled holy land. If Jun Haoyan could walk out of the Wuxian continent and head to the starry sky, there, his indestructible heavenly god body would be strengthened to the greatest extent. If he used his Dharma idol heaven and earth with his means, he would definitely be able to move thousands of stars. With such pure power, even an immortal longevity realm powerhouse could be defeated with one punch. He could even fight an immortal creation realm powerhouse head-on and not be at a disadvantage. However, if he encountered an immortal realm powerhouse, Jun Haoyan would still not be able to defeat him. Unless he comprehended the immortal realm and lived for 10,000 years. After reaching the immortal realm, he would be able to fight an immortal realm powerhouse. At this moment, the number of giant elephant seeds in Jun Haoyan's body had also reached an extremely terrifying number. A total of 2 million. With so many giant elephant seeds, his true core energy was incomparably dense. When fighting at the same level, he could use magical powers at will without caring about the consumption of true core energy. In addition, those supreme magical powers in the Cauldron Nourishment scriptures had also been successfully comprehended by Jun Haoyan. Even the Heavenly Heart Frost Arrogance technique that Jun Moyo left him, of the 3,000 snowflake patterns, had been refined by him as many as 30 pieces. This meant that he could be considered to have entered the door of this supreme technique. At this moment he could change the seasons at will, change the heavens and the earth, and freeze thousands of miles with a single move. If Jun Haoyan activated the Heavenly Heart Frost Arrogance technique with all his strength, even 100,000 miles of mountains and rivers could be frozen in an instant. This supreme technique from the Divine Lady of the Four Stars Divine Realm was extraordinarily powerful. When Jun Haoyan activated this technique, he could even seal the Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi in true essence in the void. As for the other Supreme Emperor arts, Jun Haoyan had already cultivated them to an extremely high level. Especially the Do Secret character and the All Secret character, he had already reached the stage where he could use them as he pleased. He no longer needed to circulate the secret of all 10,000 times to activate it. As long as he willed it, he would be able to increase his combat power by 10 times at any time. After cultivating in the Langya Mountain River diagram for 20 days, Jun Haoyan's strength could be said to have undergone an earth-shattering change. At this moment, his strength had undergone a complete qualitative change. Compared to when he entered the Langya landscape diagram, his strength had increased by at least 10 times. Jun Haoyan was extremely confident. In the Trichiliacosm, no one in the Dharma characteristic realm was his match. No matter how monstrous the other party was or how peerless the other party was. Jun Haoyan was even confident that he could suppress the Supreme Emperor who dominated the heavens when he was in the Dharma characteristic realm. This was strength, this was confidence. What a pity. I still couldn't break through to the immortal realm this time. It seems that I still need some time to break through to the immortal realm. Feeling the incomparably violent strength in his body, Jun Haoyan was extremely confident, but at the same time he couldn't help but feel a little regretful. After all, only by reaching the immortal realm could one be qualified to enter the ranks of the top experts in the continent. The immortal realm was extremely important to him. His main goal for this time's seclusion was to break through to the immortal realm. In the end he didn't achieve his goal. This made Jun Haoyan feel a little disappointed. According to his estimation, the energy in the Langya landscape diagram could allow his primordial spirit to reach 10 inches and 10 parts. However, it was impossible to achieve the immortal realm. Therefore, if he wanted to reach the immortal realm, Jun Haoyan still had to find other ways. The martial god continent was about to face a great calamity. Before the calamity arrived, Jun Haoyin had to ensure that he had the strength of the immortal realm. Only then could he protect himself in this great calamity. Jun Haoyin had cultivated the demonic heaven-devouring skill to an extremely high level. At this moment he could already devour the surrounding heaven and earth yuan qi on his own. Although he was in seclusion, Jun Haoyin didn't spend much energy to absorb the heaven and earth yuan qi. Just like that, he cultivated while thinking of a way to break through to the immortal realm. As for what was happening in the outside world, he had no idea. While Jun Haoyin was in seclusion, in the outside world, in the martial god continent's central plains. The central plains had always been known as the land of the dragon veins of the martial god continent. It was also the most fertile place. It could be said that this was a place full of outstanding people. The largest number of humans gathered here. However, at this moment, somewhere in the central plains, the heavens and earth were shaking. Endless golden clouds were surging in the void. Countless mortals gathered and knelt on the ground. They looked like they were praying to the heavens. Here, a vast divine light spread out. A mountain that was originally only a few hundred meters tall suddenly grew to 1,000 meters tall. In just a single night, it had grown to a height of hundreds of thousands of zhang, reaching straight into the sky and into the clouds. Above, it looked like it was connecting the heavens and the earth. All the mortals who had lived here for generations had never seen such a scene. They all thought that it was the work of a god and kept kowtowing. This action attracted countless cultivators in the surroundings to watch. However, any cultivator who got within 10,000 meters of this huge mountain disappeared, never to appear again. Chapter 2, Son of Heaven. In everyone's eyes, this divine mountain was incomparably vast. It was taller than any mountain in the martial god continent. Not only was it tall, but many cultivators couldn't see the end of the mountain when they looked at it. Some cultivators tried to fly over this divine mountain but found that they couldn't fly above it. This divine mountain that appeared seemed to run through the entire martial god continent. Everyone in the continent looked up at it. At this moment, millions of mortals gathered at the foot of this divine mountain. They kept kowtowing to the divine mountain. Their mouths were constantly muttering something. It was as if they were praying to the heavens and earth for the blessings of the gods. Above the clouds, many cultivators from the central plains also gathered. They didn't care about what the mortals were doing. Instead, they looked up at the divine mountain. What's going on? At this moment, a domineering voice sounded in the void. The entire world seemed to be shaking. A man in a golden python robe suddenly appeared in the void. He was looking at the divine mountain in front of him. At this moment, this man had a dignified face. He exuded the aura of a king from head to toe. It was as if a noble son of heaven had descended. As long as this man stood there, countless people would submit to him. He was the ruler of the world. This man who suddenly appeared was the crown prince of the Vermilion Bird Empire, the head of the 4 empires in the Central Plains. He was known as the Son of Heaven. That's right, this man's name was Son of Heaven. Before the sacred mountain left the mountain, the Son of Heaven had already sensed the strange movements here. After that, Son of Heaven didn't hesitate at all. He led many experts here to see what was going on. After all, this area was the territory of the Vermilion Bird Empire. Naturally, he had to investigate thoroughly. Your Highness, there's no news from the experts. We arranged to enter this mountain. As soon as Son of Heaven finished speaking, a middle-aged man came to Son of Heaven's side. This man's aura was also extremely terrifying. His cultivation had even reached the immortal longevity realm. Such a supreme existence was incomparably lowly in front of Son of Heaven at this moment. This scene naturally caused the bystanders to be incomparably shocked. We lost news. Did none of them come back? Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Son of Heaven immediately frowned. He looked at the divine mountain again with a trace of surprise on his face. One had to know that the people he arranged to enter this mountain were all experts. There were even peak transcendence realm existences. Even such experts didn't come out after entering this mountain. And there was no news at all. No one knew if they were alive or dead. Did you find out any other information? After a moment, Son of Heaven ignored this matter and asked the middle-aged man again. With such an attitude, it was as if even the death of a primordial spirit transcendence realm expert was nothing in front of him. As one of the oldest empires in the Central Plains, the Vermilion Bird Empire's foundation wasn't any weaker than the Kunlun Holy Land. Your Highness, we've investigated a lot. According to the words of the mortals here, this place was originally a low hill, but for some reason, it suddenly rose by more than 10,000 feet last night. It's simply inconceivable. Hearing Son of Heaven's question again, the middle-aged man's face turned serious and slowly told him what he knew. Even as an immortal level 5 expert, he had never experienced such an unbelievable scene. The scene in front of him was simply too unbelievable. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he probably wouldn't have dared to believe all of this. In just one night, the small mountain that was a few hundred meters tall had such a change? Oh. After hearing the man's words, Son of Heaven's face was actually filled with curiosity. Obviously, he had also developed a trace of interest in this matter. But that was all there was to it. He could clearly feel that within this sacred mountain, there were definitely many shocking secrets hidden. After the primordial spirit transcendence realm experts entered, they all disappeared without a trace and didn't cause any trouble. He even felt that even if the immortal level experts of ancient giants entered this mountain, they probably wouldn't be able to come out. Fortunately, at present, this sacred mountain didn't pose any threat to the Vermilion Bird Empire's immortals. Otherwise, even he wouldn't be able to do anything. By the way, Your Highness, it's said that this mountain is called Barren Mountain. At this moment, the middle-aged man seemed to have thought of something and immediately spoke up. It was as if in his heart, the two words, Barren Mountain, represented some unusual meaning. However, after hearing this, Son of Heaven didn't have much of an expression. This was because he didn't know what this sacred mountain called Barren Mountain represented. Pay attention to the movements here. I'll go back and report to my father, Son of Heaven said. After discovering that there was no threat, he directly left this place. At this moment in the Langya sacred ground, Jun Haoyin was still in seclusion. Ding. The check-in time has been refreshed. Host, do you wish to check in? At this moment, a familiar system notification sounded in Jun Haoyin's mind. Hearing this, Jun Haoyin's face naturally lit up. He was just worrying about how to break through to the immortal level. Perhaps this check-in could help him? Thinking of this, Jun Haoyin muttered in his mind, check-in. Ding. Congratulations to the host for check-in successfully. You have obtained the boundless heaven and earth treasure plate. The next moment, the system's voice sounded again. At this moment, after hearing this voice, Jun Haoyin's expression was slightly stunned. However, when the information of this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate appeared in his mind, he began to fall into an incomparable shock. He never expected that he would actually obtain such a rare treasure from checking in this time. Through the information transmitted to him by the system, Jun Haoyin naturally also knew the function of this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate. This boundless heaven and earth treasure plate only had one greatest ability, and that was that it could detect all the treasures in the world. Yes. As long as one had this treasure plate, one could find all the treasures and supreme fortunes in the world. As long as these treasures or fortunes were in front of this treasure plate, they would have nowhere to hide. Moreover, according to the settings of this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate, the treasures it searched for were the most powerful and most precious fortunes in the surroundings. Although this strange treasure seemed to have only one use, it was still extremely powerful. It was indeed very powerful. That was why Jun Haoyin was so shocked. With this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate, Jun Haoyin could find countless heavenly treasures. Of course, it was not that easy to use this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate to find treasures. Injecting true essence into it was only one of the steps. If he wanted to activate it a second time, he would need to wait. Therefore, it was not that easy to use this boundless heaven and earth treasure plate to find his own fortune. Without much hesitation, Jun Haoyin took out the compass in his hand. Layers of light surged on it, looking mysterious and powerful. As long as Jun Haoyin wanted, this treasure plate could find the strongest fortune in the surroundings. However, he did not do so because the setting of this treasure plate was that the range of treasure hunting was based on one's strength. Jun Haoyin had the strength of a primordial soul Dharma phase master, so according to his estimation, he could only find the strongest fortune in the surrounding 100,000 miles. Almost all of the surrounding 100,000 miles could be considered the territory of the Langya sacred land. Of course, he knew what was inside. Therefore, Jun Haoyin did not use this first opportunity to activate it now. At this moment, Jun Haoyin placed the boundless heaven and earth treasure plate into his sea of Qi Dantian and took a deep breath. Now, the primordial soul in his body had reached 10 inches and 10 parts. He was one step away from the immortal longevity realm. Unfortunately, this step required various factors and good fortune to be taken. It was not enough to just have powerful energy. Just as Jun Haoyin was about to continue his seclusion, Tao Xin's voice came from outside. Haoyin, something big has happened in the Central Plains. Hearing this, Jun Haoyin suddenly opened his eyes. Could it be a change in the martial god continent? It was going to start so soon? Chapter 212. Originally, Jun Haoyan had thought that the calamity that Jun Moyo had mentioned would take some time to descend. He had not expected it to be so soon. In the next moment, Jun Haoyan stood up and activated the demonic heaven-devouring skill. He directly absorbed all the chi of heaven and earth in the void into his energy center. Then, the small primordial spirit in Jun Haoyan's body grew a little and became 10 inches tall. It turned into a stream of light and entered between his eyebrows. At this moment, the 2 million giant elephant seeds that had awakened in his body began to grow rapidly. In a short while they had reached over 4 million. This number was already the peak that Jun Haoyan could achieve in the Transcendence realm. At this moment he was only one step away from breaking through to the immortal realm. All he needed was an opportunity and Jun Haoyan could successfully break through to the immortal realm. Moreover, this opportunity was not far away. Since his cultivation had already reached the peak of the Transcendence realm and he was unable to break through for the time being, Jun Haoyan did not hesitate and walked out of the Langya landscape illustration. Outside the Langya landscape illustration, Tao Xian saw Jun Haoyan come out and felt Jun Haoyan's aura. Tao Xian could not help but be shocked. Primordial spirit at the peak of the Transcendence realm and 10 inches of primordial spirit? Tao Xian said slowly as he stared at Jun Haoyan carefully. With just one look, Tao Xian could tell Jun Haoyan's current cultivation level. During the time that Jun Haoyan was in seclusion, he had been wholeheartedly activating the Langya landscape illustration. Therefore, Tao Xian could tell Jun Haoyan's current cultivation level at a glance. After Jun Haoyan heard Tao Xian's words, he nodded slowly. There was no need to hide his cultivation level from Tao Xian. Looks like you're just a step away from achieving a breakthrough to the sempiternal realm. Tao Xian continued. The fact that Jun Haoyan could reach his current level of strength was indeed shocking to him. However, when he thought of the monstrous talent that Jun Haoyan had displayed, he was shocked. It was reasonable for him to be able to break through to the peak of the Transcendence realm, but it was also unexpected. However, if a martial artist wanted to break through to the immortal 10,000 longevity realm, this was a process of qualitative change. Breaking through to the sempiternal realm was both simple and difficult. For some warriors with ordinary talents, even if they cultivated for hundreds or thousands of years, they still wouldn't be able to step into the immortal longevity realm. There were even some who couldn't break through to the sempiternal realm even after death. However, in Tao Xian's opinion, it was only a matter of time before Jun Haoyan broke through to the immortal realm. Holy Lord, what did you say happened in the Central Plains? Jun Haoyan didn't say much on this topic. Instead he asked Tao Xian. As the center of the martial god continent, the Central Plains could be said to be a place full of outstanding talents. It also had to be suppressed by the 4 ancient empires. It could be said that a small change in the Central Plains was enough to alarm the entire continent. There's something fishy about this. Let's go to the Langya Sacred Palace first. Tao Xian said. Upon hearing that, Jun Haoyan nodded and left with Tao Xian. The two of them instantly turned into 2 streams of light and flew out of the Langya Sacred Palace. At this moment, in the Langya Sacred Palace, all the Grand Elders and Hall Masters of the Langya Sacred Palace had gathered. Jun Haoyan could even feel that some of the Grand Elders and Hall Masters' auras had become much stronger. It was obvious that they had benefited greatly from the previous life and death battle. As expected, the path of cultivation still had to go through trials and tribulations. After a great calamity there would be new life. After successfully surviving the previous calamity, the Langya Sacred Palace was now reborn. Now there were many things in the Langya Sacred Palace that were waiting to be rebuilt. It was about to burst forth towards the peak of the Langya Sacred Palace. At this moment, all the Grand Elders and Hall Masters closed their eyes and waited quietly. But at this moment, 2 figures appeared in the Langya Sacred Palace, causing everyone to open their eyes. Greetings, Holy Lord. Greetings, Holy Son. Greetings, Holy Lord. Greetings, Holy Son. Everyone spoke at this moment with smiles and a trace of respect on their faces. Originally, it was normal for Tao Xian to receive such treatment as the Holy Lord of a sacred palace. However, Jun Haoyan was only the Holy Son. In terms of seniority, both the Grand Elders and Hall Masters were his seniors. Now, however, he was receiving the same treatment. In the eyes of outsiders, this was simply impossible. But now, both the Grand Elders and Hall Masters were treating Jun Haoyan the same way. Everyone was sincere and had some respect for him. In cultivation, the one who reached the top was first. Age had nothing to do with it. Although Jun Haoyan's cultivation was not necessarily as high as the Grand Elders, he had played a vital role in the previous battle. It was because of him that the Langya Sacred Palace could not be destroyed. It was normal for him to receive such treatment. At this moment in the Langya Sacred Palace, in addition to the Holy Lord throne that belonged to Tao Xian, there was also the Holy Sun throne that was second only to Tao Xian's. This throne belonged to Jun Haoyin, and was only half a step behind the Holy Lord throne. From this, it could be seen that Jun Haoyin's terrifying status in the Langya Sacred Palace was much higher than that of the Grand Elders. Tao Xian and Jun Haoyin both nodded at this moment. They did not say anything and took their places. Now that the upper echelons of the Langya Sacred Palace were standing in this place, Jun Haoyin guessed that what had happened in Zhongzhou was not a small matter. Then Tao Xian gestured for everyone to sit down, and then began to talk about what had happened in Zhongzhou recently. What? A divine mountain suddenly rose up in Zhongzhou and went straight to the outer region. It's called Mount Tai? Jun Haoyin was extremely surprised when he heard Tao Xian's words. If it was just an ordinary change he would not be so surprised. But that divine mountain was called Mount Tai. He was not sure if the two were related in any way. What? Do you know this giant mountain? Tao Xian asked. They were very surprised because Jun Haoyin, who had always been steady, rarely had such a reaction. When Jun Haoyin heard this, he immediately shook his head, indicating that he did not know. The people present did not suspect anything. After all, Jun Haoyin now had great prestige in the Langya Sacred Palace. It was impossible for anyone to suspect him. After Jun Haoyin sat down, he kept frowning but soon calmed down. Perhaps it was just the same name. He then asked, "Is there any other news?" "Yes," Tao Xian answered. Although it happened in Zhongzhou, it was very easy for a sacred palace to gather information. Then as Tao Xian continued to explain, Jun Haoyin became more and more surprised. That was because the divine mountain called Mount Tai was extremely mysterious. There were powerhouses from the Vermilion Bird dynasty who approached within 10,000 meters of it, but they all disappeared in the end. No one even knew if they were dead or alive. But strangely, as long as people with ordinary cultivation entered, they would not be affected at all. Under such circumstances, people from major forces sent mortals to explore. Unfortunately, the information they received was that there was no way to go up, as if there was some barrier blocking them. Under such circumstances, no one knew what secrets were hidden in Mount Tai. But even so, people from major forces still received a small amount of information. That was, there were mortals who saw it at the peak of the divine mountain. There was a figure wearing a dragon robe, a sacrifice to the heavens. Chapter 2. Jun Haoyin's guess. At the peak of Mount Tai, there was someone wearing a yellow robe offering sacrifices to the heavens. These rumors were said to have been spread by mortals. Warriors standing 10,000 meters away from Mount Tai could not see anything on Mount Tai. Only after going deep could they discover the strange phenomenon inside. But Mount Tai could only be entered by ordinary mortals. This news immediately shocked all the major forces in Wuxia continent. Because all warriors were not allowed to enter Mount Tai, the secret rumors circulating on the continent were all from the mouths of mortals. In short, the news brought by these mortals was trustworthy. After all, in front of warriors, these mortals did not dare to lie at all. However, when Jun Haoyin heard this news again, his mind was shocked again. In his previous life, the world he lived in, it was also a famous Mount Tai. Although the height of Mount Tai could not be compared to the divine mountain in Middle Earth. In his previous life, Jun Haoyin had seen some information about it. Legend had it that Mount Tai was the place where all the emperors worshipped. In his previous life, regardless of whether it was the emperors of ancient times or the emperors of previous dynasties, they would all climb Mount Tai to worship and express their orthodoxy. And according to the news leaked by these mortals, it seemed that Mount Tai in Middle Earth was the same. Could it be that Wuxia continent has some connection with the world of my previous life? Are these two Mount Tai the same one? At this moment, Jun Haoyin had already made up his mind. If he had the chance, he would go there personally to investigate. But according to the news, any warrior who wanted to enter Mount Tai would disappear very quickly. It was unknown if immortal realm warriors could come out after entering. But even if Dharma characteristic realm warriors entered, they would not return. They could not even cause a ripple. From this point of view, the current Mount Tai could be considered to be extremely dangerous. If one was not careful, they might not be able to return. Many powerful warriors on the continent did not dare to take the risk. However, Jun Haoyin was not afraid at all. In order to investigate the secrets of Mount Tai, he had to enter Mount Tai at least once. So far, this is the only news we have, and this is only what happened in Middle Earth. At this moment, Tao Xian spoke slowly. At this moment, he was also frowning. Obviously, these strange things had already exceeded the scope of his understanding. Even as the Holy Lord of the human race, he could not find out the secrets behind all this. Even the #1 dynasty in Middle-earth, the Vermilion Bird dynasty, after discovering Mount Tai, had given up after spending a lot of effort to investigate it to no avail. They could only allow Mount Tai to develop and affect countless mortals. As one of the oldest factions on Wuxian continent, they had actually chosen to retreat directly. From this, it was clear that the Vermilion Bird dynasty was aware of the dangers involved. But the way Dao Yan saw it, he had an ominous premonition from start to finish. However, when Jun Haoyan heard Tao Xian's words, he caught some information. He immediately asked Tao Xian, "Holy Lord, do you mean that there are other places besides Middle-earth that are experiencing strange changes?" Jun Haoyan was very suspicious. Could this be the great calamity that Jun Moyo mentioned? That's right. In the north of Eastern Wilderness, where it meets North Sea, there is a place called Penglai that is covered in endless fog. A grand elder spoke up and said this. The moment he said this, Jun Haoyan was shocked again. First Mount Tai in Middle-earth, and now Penglai in Eastern Wilderness? What was going on? Could this Wuxian continent really have a lot to do with the world in his previous life? Or maybe they just have the same name. This time, even Jun Haoyan was beginning to feel suspicious. However, when he wanted to investigate further, that grand elder didn't say any important information. This was because no matter if it was a mortal or a cultivator, or even any creature that entered Penglai that was shrouded in fog, they never came out again. North Sea was the gathering place of the demon race. And the demon race was the greatest enemy of all races. They had once launched many great wars in ancient times. In a certain era, they had even ruled 3,000 worlds and challenged the prestige of the immortal god world. After that, the immortal god world paid a huge price and sent down many eternal and ancient existences to defeat the demon race. In the end, they sealed the demon race in the north of various great worlds. In other words, the north of the 3,000 worlds was a terrifying place that sealed the immortal god world and the demon world. It was also where all races stopped because no one knew what would happen if the demon race appeared again. As for Penglai, it was shrouded in fog. This was the place that the entire Wuxian continent paid attention to. No one wanted the demon race to break the seal because no one could defeat the demon race except the immortal god world. However, now it seemed that other than being shrouded in fog, there was no change in Penglai. However, the occurrence of these two major events caused all the warriors in the Wuxian continent to feel uneasy. Some people even said that this was a sign that the Wuxian continent was about to be destroyed and that a great disaster was about to befall. However, not many people cared about this kind of talk. Although there was a disaster that could destroy a great world, it would not happen so easily. In short, there were all kinds of theories. This was also the reason why the higher-ups of the Langya Sacred Land had called for a meeting. After all, as the top force of the Wuxian continent, they had to take precautions. Holy Son, what do you think about these things? After a long discussion, Tao Xian looked at Jun Haoyan. Letting Jun Haoyan participate in the meeting meant that he now had the right to speak and even the right to make decisions. At this moment, after hearing these things, Jun Haoyan stood up. I suggest that we call back all the disciples who have gone out to train during this period of time. The entire Langya Sacred Land will enter a state of martial law. Without orders, no one is allowed to go out easily. Jun Haoyan looked at everyone present. His tone was very solemn, almost without any consideration as he voiced his opinion. When the Supreme Elder and Tao Xian heard this, their expressions changed drastically. Martial law in the Langya Sacred Land? Without orders, no disciples were allowed to go out to train? One had to know that this was only done when the sacred land was in danger of being destroyed. Now, Jun Haoyan had actually said this in front of everyone and suggested that the higher-ups issue such an order. Although the other sacred lands had also called for a meeting of the higher-ups, almost all of them were observing. They only asked their disciples to be careful and did not issue such an order. The result of doing so would cause panic in the sacred land. Unless it was a last resort, no one would do this. Are you suspecting something? Although Tao Xian was surprised by this order, he did not raise any objections. Instead, he asked directly. He knew that Jun Haoyan must have his own reasons for doing so. It was also possible that he had sensed something. Now, Jun Haoyan was not just the Holy Son. He was a figure standing at the top of the Langya Sacred Land. The other Supreme Elders did the same, waiting for Jun Haoyan's explanation. Jun Haoyan looked at everyone present, took a deep breath and said, "Perhaps the most terrifying catastrophe of the Wuxian continent is really coming." Chapter 213. A terrifying great calamity is about to descend upon the world. As soon as Jun Haoyan said this, everyone present was shocked. The various supreme elders looked at each other in dismay, their faces filled with suspicion. If this sentence was said by someone else, they would only treat it as a rumor and would not believe it at all. However, these words actually came out of Jun Haoyin's mouth. With their understanding of Jun Haoyin, they absolutely believed that Jun Haoyin would not speak without thinking. Then everyone looked at Jun Haoyin with a hint of doubt in their eyes. They were guessing in their hearts, did the Holy Sun know something? Of course, these were just guesses in their hearts. As for the specific situation, they still had to hear Jun Haoyin explain it personally. At this moment, Jun Haoyin's eyes flashed with a hint of contemplation. He hesitated in his heart whether he should tell everyone what Jun Moyo told him. Of course, with Jun Haoyin's current strength and status, even if he did not want to explain, no one would dare to force him. Everyone would also consider his words carefully. After hesitating for a moment, Jun Haoyin decided to tell everyone everything. After all, this matter would be known by the world sooner or later. Jun Haoyin looked at everyone present. His expression did not change as he began to explain everything. He first told everyone about Jun Moyo. He did not even hide Jun Moyo's origin from everyone. Jun Haoyin knew very well in his heart that if this great calamity really descended, it would be difficult for the entire Langya Holy Land to survive this great calamity. When the great calamity descended, the world barrier would disappear. At that time, the peerless masters of the 3,000 great worlds would descend upon the martial god continent. How terrifying would that be? How many terrifying existences would descend upon the continent? At that time, even the various sacred masters would not be much of a threat. As long as an Emperor Realm Master descended upon the martial god continent, they would be able to kill holy masters at will. The power structure of the martial god continent would instantly change. Furthermore, the various experts from the 3,000 worlds would not care about the destruction caused to the martial god continent. If a battle between Emperor Realm Masters was unrestrained, it would be enough to shatter the entire eastern wilderness. After the calamity was over, these foreign experts would decisively leave the martial god continent, leaving behind a mess. To them, the destruction of the martial god continent did not matter. If the martial god continent was destroyed, then a colossus like the Langya Sacred Ground, as one of the strongest forces on the martial god continent, would definitely be the first to be affected. These secrets were told by Jun Moyo to Jun Haoyin at the small thunder temple. After a while, Jun Haoyin finally told him everything. These words were also a warning to everyone in the Langya Holy Land. When they heard Jun Haoyin's words, everyone present, including the Holy Lord of Langya and Tao Xian, was extremely shocked. At this moment, it was as if they had heard something from the Arabian Nights. What Jun Haoyin said was completely beyond their imagination and understanding. Jun Moyo was actually one of the clones of the supreme existence of the god world, goddess Shenji. Such an existence was actually a true disciple of their Langya Holy Land. This news was too shocking for the Holy Lord of Langya, Tao Xian, and the supreme elders present, especially Jun Moyo's master. So, Linglong Holy Master knew about Jun Moyo's identity, so she tried to snatch Jun Moyo. At this moment, a supreme elder spoke slowly. It was Jun Moyo's master. At this moment he finally understood the cause and effect of the matter. However, he still found it hard to believe about Jun Moyo's origin. Haoyin, are you talking about the legendary 5 decay of heaven and man? At this moment, after hearing Jun Haoyin's words, Tao Xian seemed to have thought of something and suddenly spoke. At the mention of the 5 decay of heaven and man, Tao Xian's expression was filled with caution. 5 decay of heaven and man? It was the first time Jun Haoyin had heard of this term, so he immediately looked at Tao Xian in confusion. Seeing the confusion in Jun Haoyin's eyes, Tao Xian immediately began to explain. After a moment, Jun Haoyin understood what the 5 decay of heaven and man was. His expression became unprecedentedly cautious. At this moment, Jun Haoyin was even more certain that the great calamity that Jun Moyo had mentioned was the 5 decay of heaven and man. Jun Haoyin. He had also read some books about the ancient secrets of the martial god continent. The ancient books had mentioned that a long time ago, the martial god continent was ranked very high in the 3,000 worlds. When it was born, it was ranked in the top 10 worlds of the 3,000 worlds. Every once in a while, a great calamity would descend between the heavens and the earth in the top 10 worlds. At this moment, Jun Haoyin already understood that this so-called great calamity should be the 5 decay of heaven and man. Only by successfully passing the 5 decay of heaven and man would one be able to rise in the 3,000 worlds ranking. On the other hand, if one failed to pass the calamity, one's ranking would drop. Unfortunately, so far, only the martial god continent had failed to pass the calamity among the top 10 worlds. The current martial god continent was not even ranked in the top 500 of the 3,000 worlds. The reason for all of this was because the previous 3-5 decay of heaven and man had failed to pass the calamity. Since MOU said it, it can't be wrong. I didn't expect that the 5 decay of heaven and man would really descend. Tao Xian took a deep breath and slowly stood up with an extremely solemn expression. Since he already knew Jun Moyo's background as an assassin, he naturally believed in Jun Moyo's words without a doubt. This 5 decay of heaven and man calamity was enough to reshuffle the forces of the entire martial god continent. If it was more serious, perhaps the entire martial god continent would be buried. For the sake of the Langya sacred ground or the future of the entire martial god continent, they had to treat this great calamity seriously. Thinking of this, a trace of determination flashed across Tao Xian's face. Then he looked at everyone present and spoke directly. As the Holy Lord of Langya, I issue a decree. From today onwards, the entire sacred ground will enter a state of emergency. All the disciples of the Langya sacred ground are not allowed to leave without orders. In addition, I announce that Jun Haoyin has already stepped into the peak of the 10th level of the Transcendence Realm. Once he breaks through to the 5th level of the Immortal Realm, it will be the time for him to succeed the position of the sacred leader. From today onwards, the Holy Son of Haoyin has the authority to control the life and death of the entire sacred ground. The entire Langya sacred ground must obey the orders of the Holy Son. At this moment, Tao Xian directly announced to the entire Langya sacred ground. His voice was extremely loud. Although it was only heard in the Langya sacred hall, it spread throughout the entire Langya sacred ground. Tao Xian's words directly caused the entire Langya sacred ground to enter a state of emergency. What's going on? Didn't we just end the emergency state of emergency? Is something going to happen again? The Holy Son of Haoyin can directly succeed the position of the sacred leader after breaking through to the 5th level of the Immortal Realm. Is the sacred leader going to give the position to the Holy Son of Haoyin? Hearing Langya's holy leader Tao Xian's words, all the pro-disciples were aghast and filled with disbelief. The Holy Lord of Langya's orders were too sudden and shocking for them. Especially that Haoyin, as long as he broke through to the Immortal Realm, he could directly take on the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. One had to know that in every sacred ground of the human clan, there were even people who wanted to take on the position of the sacred leader. They had to go through the heavenly worship ceremony and obtain the approval of the heavenly worship ceremony before they could take on the position of the sacred leader. Many people felt that Dao Yan's order was given a little too early, too careless. At this moment, in the Langya sacred hall, all the temple masters and supreme elders stood up. Although they looked a little hesitant, they hesitated for a moment before directly saying, "We obey the sacred leader's orders." If it were any other time, no matter how strong and talented Jun Haoyin was, they would still follow the sacred ground's rules. They would also insist on following the sacred ground's rules. But now, the 5 decay of heavenly beings was about to happen. They could not care less during this critical period. At this moment, Tao Xian seemed to have thought of something and looked at Jun Haoyin. He said with a somewhat grave tone, "Is Supreme Sky willing to be the Holy Lord of Langya?" Translator. Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio, are you willing to become the Holy Lord of Langya? Tao Xian's sudden words were enough to shock everyone present. At this moment, not only was Tao Xian staring at Jun Haoyin, but all the people from Langya Holy Land in the hall were also staring at him. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation and hope. In their hearts, they hoped that Jun Haoyin could become the next Holy Lord of the Langya sacred ground. They also believed that the powerful Holy Son of Haoyin would lead the Langya holy ground to new heights. At this moment, Jun Haoyin was definitely everyone's favorite. During his time as the Holy Son of Haoyin, Jun Haoyin had completely conquered all the elders and temple masters of the Langya sacred ground with his talent, strength, and domineering attitude. Jun Haoyin had killed many geniuses and peerless geniuses. His invincible attitude among the younger generation had completely conquered hundreds of thousands of Langya disciples. At this moment, if Jun Haoyin were to ascend to the position of Holy Lord, no one would object. To ascend to the position of Holy Lord so easily, this had never happened before in the Wuxian continent. This was not only the case in the Langya sacred ground, but also in the other sacred grounds and dynasties of the continent. If the Holy Son wanted to ascend to the position of Holy Lord, he would not only need to rely on strength, but also monstrous methods. For example, if the crown prince of the 4 dynasties wanted to ascend to the throne, he would also need to secretly win over his officials and consolidate his power. When Tao Xian was still around, he had also gone through many battles before successfully ascending to the position of Holy Lord. Unlike Jun Haoyin's current situation, there had been a total of 4 Holy Sun in the Langya sacred ground back then. Tao Xian's success in ascending to the position of Holy Lord was due to his killing methods, talent, and strength. But now Jun Haoyin was the only Holy Sun in the Langya sacred ground. There was no competition and no one could compete with him. Moreover, the entire Bluetooth sacred ground, including the Holy Lord, Grand Supreme Elder, and all the Langya disciples, they were all thinking that Jun Haoyin could become the next Holy Lord of Langya. In that great battle, Jun Haoyin had displayed his strength and methods. Everyone in the Langya sacred ground believed that he could lead the Langya sacred ground to glory again. Moreover, the Wuxian continent would face an unparalleled calamity. The arrival of the 5 decay of the heavenly man had caused everyone in the Langya sacred ground to panic. At this moment they needed a powerful person to lead them. Of course, this did not mean that the Langya disciples no longer trusted the Holy Lord of Langya and Tao Xian. They just needed a more powerful Holy Lord to lead the Langya sacred ground. In that great battle, Jun Haoyin had displayed strength that was far stronger than Tao Xian's. Therefore, the Langya disciples hoped that Jun Haoyin could step forward and lead the Langya sacred ground. Of course, this was not only what the Langya disciples hoped to see. Tao Xian also hoped that Jun Haoyin could take the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. At this moment, Jun Haoyin's heart was filled with shock when he saw this scene. He looked at everyone present and fell silent for a moment. To be honest, Jun Haoyin had never thought of taking the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. He had never thought of taking the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. To him, the Langya sacred ground and even the entire Wuxian continent were too small. He had ambitions in his heart and wanted to explore the 3,000 worlds. That was his true stage. When he had agreed to become the Holy Son of Langya, it was only to deal with the Xiang Holy Sun. However, if he had agreed to become the Holy Lord of Langya, he could no longer rely on himself. His every word and action represented the entire Langya sacred ground. From now on, he would unconditionally pay any price to protect the Langya sacred ground. This was a responsibility that he had to fulfill after becoming the Holy Lord of Langya. Jun Haoyin had always been a loner and was most afraid of troublesome matters. When he heard Tao Xian's words, his first reaction was to directly reject it. However, when he saw the hope in the eyes of everyone present, he fell silent and did not open his mouth to reject it. He did not expect that everyone present would support him to take the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. When Jun Haoyin stepped down, if anyone objected to him taking the position of the Holy Lord of Langya, he could take the opportunity to step down. However, at this moment, no one objected. This made him feel a little conflicted. This scene in front of him was the hope and trust that all the disciples and elders of Langya had in him. During his time as the Holy Son of Langya, the Langya sacred ground had done a lot for him. As the Holy Son of Langya, he had to fulfill his responsibility to protect the Langya sacred ground. Moreover, in Jun Haoyin's opinion, there was no conflict between becoming the Holy Lord of Langya and exploring the 3,000 worlds in the future. Of course, the time might be delayed for a while. Jun Haoyin planned in his heart that after he led the entire Langya sacred ground and successfully survived the 5 decay of heaven and man, when the time came he would support others to take the position. Therefore Jun Haoyin thought it through. He did not have to reject the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. Thinking of this, Jun Haoyin could not help but sigh slightly in his heart and feel a little emotional. In his heart, he had never thought that there would be such a day. When this day suddenly came, Jun Haoyin, who had always been calm, was actually at a loss. After calming his slightly agitated emotions, Jun Haoyin looked at the Holy Lord of Langya, Tao Xian, and the Supreme Elders present. Then he nodded solemnly. Okay, I agree to take the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. In the main hall, Jun Haoyin's voice was sonorous and powerful. It was full of dominance and confidence. When Jun Haoyin said this, everyone present, including Tao Xian and the Supreme Elders, looked excited. They secretly heaved a sigh of relief. In their hearts, with Jun Haoyin's talent, sooner or later, he would be able to break through the 5 immortal realms and reach a higher realm. At that time, the Trichiliocosm would be his real stage. The small Langya sacred ground would not be able to restrain him at all. The moment Tao Xian spoke, he did not even have a trace of hope that Jun Haoyin could be the Holy Lord of Langya. At this moment, when he saw that Jun Haoyin had actually agreed, he was undoubtedly very excited. Because this represented Jun Haoyin's acknowledgement of the Langya sacred ground. This was a true sense of belonging. It also represented that the Langya sacred ground's unconditional support of the Holy Son of Haoyin's choice was not wrong. In that case, I will wait for you to successfully break through the immortal realm. At this moment, Tao Xian looked at Jun Haoyan with a face full of smiles. Ever since he took the position of the Holy Lord of Langya, he had never been as relaxed as he was today. It was as if a very heavy burden had been lifted from his heart. In fact, although becoming the Holy Lord of the human clan's sacred ground was a very honorable thing, it meant that from now on he would stand at the peak of the martial god continent. However, it came with a heavy responsibility, a responsibility that could not be shirked no matter what. Now Tao Xian had handed this responsibility to Jun Haoyan. Naturally he felt much more relaxed. By the way, it's time for us to hold the Langya conference in 5 days. But now that this has happened, do we still need to hold the conference? At this moment, a supreme elder seemed to have thought of something and suddenly spoke up. Back then it was Jun Haoyan's idea to hold the Langya conference. Given Jun Haoyan's status in the Langya sacred ground, his words were naturally a big deal for the entire Langya sacred ground. Everyone was seriously preparing for it. But now, the Deva's decay was about to descend on the martial god continent. Whether this Langya conference could still be held or not was a problem for everyone present. There's no need to worry about this. The Langya conference will still be held. After all, the Deva's decay is not something that the Langya sacred ground alone can contend against. Hearing this, Jun Haoyan replied. Although he had not officially taken the position of the Holy Lord of Langya, his words carried the same weight as Tao Xian's. That's right. The conference must be held as usual. We have already sent out a notice, and the various sacred grounds in the eastern wilderness have already responded. This conference is also our preparation to resist the Deva's decay. Tao Xian's attitude was the same as Jun Haoyan's. He agreed to continue holding the Langya conference. The Deva's decay was about to descend. It would be best if they could get a few allies at this time. Hearing Tao Xian's words, all the supreme elders present nodded in agreement. Next, they had to prepare for the Langya conference. After discussing the specific matters, Jun Haoyan directly left the Langya sacred ground and returned to his Haoyan divine peak. Congratulations, Lord Holy Sun. Congratulations, Lord Holy Sun. Congratulations, Lord Holy Sun. Congratulations, Lord Holy Sun. When Jun Haoyan returned to the acquired heaven divine blade, he was surprised to find that the 108 true disciples of the Langya holy ground were all present. When they saw Jun Haoyan appear, they knelt on the ground without any hesitation. At this moment they looked at Jun Haoyan with burning gazes. Their expressions were full of admiration as if they were greeting Tao Xian. The 3 leaders were Feng Xiaoyao, Dugubo and Bailey Xuanzi. At this moment, their strengths had already reached the imperial Dao realm. Even though he was still a core disciple at the moment, he would soon be assigned to an important position in one of the 7 main halls. In the future, these people would inherit the position of Temple Lord and become one of the higher-ups of the Langya sacred ground. As for the other talented true disciples, they would also enter the 7 main halls and take up some elder positions. At this moment, these talented successor disciples were all shocked. All of them were willing to submit to Jun Haoyan without exception. Haha, all of you rise. Jun Haoyan smiled when he saw this scene and allowed them to rise. After that, Jun Haoyan directly walked towards the divine hall and sat at the head of the hall. As for all the successor disciples, they respectfully followed behind him. Now, Jun Haoyan's position as Holy Master was already set in stone. No one could take it away from him. These true disciples were naturally extremely respectful to him. After that, Jun Haoyan told the true disciples about the matters discussed in the Langya sacred ground. He ordered them not to leave the sacred ground during this period of time. Just like that, 5 days passed quickly, and the Langya conference was about to begin. Chapter 214. On this day in the Langya sacred ground, endless divine light flickered in the void as 7-colored auspicious clouds gathered in the sky. Auspicious beasts shuttled back and forth in the sacred mountain while red-crowned cranes danced in the void. At this moment, the Langya sacred ground looked like a paradise. It was like a fairyland. There were countless beautiful sceneries that made people feel relaxed and happy. At this moment, the various protective arrays in the Langya sacred ground had been removed. All the Langya disciples gathered in the central square and were busy. They placed all kinds of fine wine, spiritual fruits, and some demonic beast meat in preparation for the upcoming Langya grand event. These fine wines and spiritual fruits were extremely precious in the eyes of other small forces. However, in the eyes of the Langya sacred ground, they were not worth mentioning at all. At this moment, all the pro-disciples of the Langya sacred ground had appeared. They would be in charge of this grand event. The higher-ups of the Langya sacred ground who had always been elusive. At this moment, the 7 hall masters and the various supreme elders of the 7 halls had also appeared and stood above the void. As the hosts of this grand event in Langya, they naturally could not be the last to appear. They needed to stabilize the situation first. Jun Haoyin and Tao Xian were the 2 actual leaders of the Langya sacred ground. At this moment, they were sitting on the thrones and unparalleled auras were erupting from their bodies. Their bodies were surrounded by majestic true essence, making people have the impulse to worship them at first sight. Jun Haoyin in particular, was dressed in a noble robe and his black hair fluttered in the wind. He showed the demeanor of a peerless genius. His aura was comparable to that of Tao Xian who was beside him. He was like a real sacred lord. Around the 2 of them, the various supreme elders were slowly sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed. The sacred lord of the all-heaven sacred ground has arrived. At this moment, a loud voice suddenly rang out in the void. Upon hearing the voice, most of the pro-disciples opened their eyes and looked at the void in surprise. I didn't expect the Luo Tian Holy Land to be so fast. They have already elected a new Holy Lord. I thought that after the previous Holy Lord of the All-Heaven Holy Land was killed by the Holy Sun, the All-Heaven Holy Land would be without a leader. I didn't expect that a new Holy Lord would appear so quickly. Haha, with the current strength of the Grand Emperor of all heaven, he is no threat to my Langya sacred ground. All the true disciples were looking at the sky as they discussed with smiles on their faces. At this moment, they were looking at the Luo Tian Holy Land with a superior attitude. That battle had thoroughly established the reputation of the Langya Holy Land. 3 Holy Lords had fallen. The supreme weapon fled in fear. The demon clan's giant had fallen. Such a terrifying battle record was enough to shock the entire martial god continent. Even the Langya sacred land, the number 1 sacred land of the human race, the Kunlun sacred land, would not have been able to achieve such a glorious result. At this moment, the new Holy Lord of the All-Heaven Holy Land turned into a stream of light and slowly appeared in the central square of the Langya Holy Land. Greetings to the Holy Lord of Langya, the Holy Son of the Hao Tian Holy Land. After landing, the new Holy Lord of the All-Heaven Holy Land greeted Tao Xian. However, when he looked at Jun Haoyin, his expression suddenly became very unnatural. Ever since that great battle, Jun Haoyin's name had spread throughout the martial god continent. Not a single person had not heard of him. The Holy Lord of the All-Heaven Holy Land was especially shocked when he sensed the energy in Jun Haoyin's body that was close to the immortal longevity realm. In less than a month, this kid had broken through from the 2nd level of the Transcendence Realm to the peak of the Transcendence Realm. Judging from his aura, it wouldn't be long before he reached the immortal longevity realm. With such a monstrous cultivation speed, no one in the martial god continent would be able to stop him in the near future. Could this guy be the next invincible existence like the Linglong Holy Lord? The Holy Lord of the All-Heaven Holy Land was even more shocked when he thought of this. However, as an elite and the Holy Lord of the All-Heaven Holy Land, he didn't lose his composure. At that moment, the Holy Lord of the All-Heaven Holy Land also noticed Jun Haoyin's seat. When he saw this, he was even more surprised. Even though the Holy Son of the Hao Tian Holy Land had been appointed as the next successor of the Langya Holy Land. However, with his current status, he should be below the various Grand Elders. However, from where Jun Haoyin was sitting, it could be said that he was on the same level as the Holy Lord of Langya and Tao Xian. It seems like the Holy Son of the Hao Tian Holy Land has an extraordinary position in the Langya Holy Land. Although the Holy Lord of the All-Heaven Holy Land was surprised, he didn't ask any questions. After leaving his gift, he took the initiative to head to his seat. Since the Langya Holy Land was hosting this grand event, everyone who came was a guest. Naturally, they had to prepare gifts. The Alcade Holy Lord and the Azure Cloud Holy Lord have arrived. After the Holy Lord of the All-Heaven Holy Land had taken his seat, another voice was heard. Hearing this, the true disciples of the Langya Holy Land and the 7 Hall Masters smiled. The grand event had just begun, and the 3 Holy Lands had already arrived. Moreover, all of them were Holy Lords. If it was in the past, it would have been impossible for them to travel all the way. In such a situation, other than the Kunlun Holy Land, no other Holy Land had such influence. Even when it was the birthday of the strongest person in the Eastern Wilderness, the Linglong Holy Lord, no Holy Lord had personally attended. However, the Langya Holy Land had done so today. This meant that the Langya Holy Land was now on par with the Kunlun Holy Land in the eyes of the Eastern Wilderness martial artists. In fact, the Langya Holy Land's strength was already worthy of such a grand event. After all, the power brought about by the two supreme weapons was too terrifying. After a while, the new Alcade Holy Lord and the Azure Cloud Holy Lord went to their seats after handing over their gifts. However, when they saw Jun Haoyin and Tao Xian sitting side by side, they were puzzled. What's going on? The Holy Sun is on par with Tao Xian the day after tomorrow. I don't know. Is the Holy Sun going to take over the position of the Holy Lord of Langya? How is this possible? Although the Holy Sun is powerful, he is only at the peak of the Transcendence realm. How can he take over the position of the Holy Lord of Langya? The three Holy Lords sat together and communicated with their spiritual souls. Obviously, they were shocked by the scene in front of them. Although they still harbored hatred for the Langya sacred ground, they were more fearful of it. They had no choice. The previous Holy Lord, who had a supreme weapon, was mercilessly killed by Jun Haoyin. With their strength, how could they go against the Langya Holy Land? Moreover, the three Holy Lords were afraid of Jun Haoyin from the bottom of their hearts. In that battle, Jun Haoyin could be said to have made a name for himself. No one in the martial god continent dared to look down on him. Linglong Holy Lord and Linglong Saintess are here. Just as the three Holy Lords were conversing in secret, a voice suddenly rang out, causing them to be shocked once again. Linglong Holy Lord, the #1 expert in the East, had come personally. They were not the only ones. At that moment, even the Supreme Elders and the 7 Hall Masters of the Langya Holy Land stood up. They looked at the sky in disbelief. They had never expected the Linglong Holy Lord to come. This was a huge amount of faith. They would never have thought that it was all because of Jun Haoyin. The Linglong Holy Lord was only here for Jun Haoyin. At that moment, everyone looked forward and wanted to see the Linglong Holy Lord's face. In the next moment, endless divine light flashed in the sky and a peerless figure appeared in front of everyone. The figure was domineering and majestic. As soon as the Linglong Holy Lord appeared, she suppressed everyone with her peerless aura. In front of her, the three Holy Lords were nothing. They were like ants. Even the Holy Lord of Langya and Tao Xian's aura was suppressed. This scene caused everyone in the Langya Holy Ground to be extremely shocked. However, the Linglong Holy Lord did not seem to want to steal the limelight. After she appeared, she immediately concealed her aura. Then she looked forward and said slowly, "Tao Xian, Holy Son of Haoyin, how have you been?" She looked at Jun Haoyin and was surprised. However, she seemed to have thought of something and did not say anything. Seeing this, she guessed that the Langya Holy Land would pass the position of Holy Lord to Jun Haoyin. In her opinion, this was the right choice. At that moment, Tao Xian and Jun Haoyin stood up and bowed slightly to the Linglong Holy Lord. It's the honor of the Langya Holy Land that the Linglong Holy Lord could come personally. Please take a seat. Their attitude towards the other Holy Lords was completely different. At this moment, Tao Xian and Jun Haoyin's expressions were extremely solemn. After all, the Linglong Holy Lord was the most powerful person in Eastern Wilderness. She had to be treated well. Tao Xian and Jun Haoyin could tell that the Linglong Holy Lord in front of them was just an incarnation. However, this did not affect their goodwill towards the Linglong Holy Lord. In their opinion, with the Linglong Holy Lord's status, sending an incarnation was enough to show her sincerity. This was what the Langya Holy Land needed the most now. The 5 decay of heavenly beings was coming. During this great calamity, the Langya Holy Land naturally wanted to form an alliance with the Linglong Holy Land. With the help of the Linglong Holy Lord, whether it was Jun Haoyin or Tao Xian, it would be much easier for them. Moreover, Jun Haoyin had always been respectful towards the Linglong Holy Lord. This woman was just too powerful. The Crown Prince of the Vermilion Bird Dynasty, the Emperor, has arrived. At this moment, another voice rang out, shocking everyone present. The Emperor. It was the #1 genius of Middle Region, the Emperor. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation The Emperor. The #1 genius of the Vermilion Bird Dynasty. It was rumored that he was the most outstanding person in the Vermilion Bird Dynasty in the past 50,000 years. He was chosen on the day he was born. Zhu Xia was chosen as the Crown Prince by Huang Zu. He was named the Emperor. After so many years, no one could shake the Emperor's position as the Crown Prince. Putting everything else aside, the Emperor's domineering name alone was enough to make countless people admire him. 3 years ago, in the Middle Region Prodigy competition, the Emperor even crushed the other 3 dynasties' prodigies with an invincible attitude, defeating all of them. Now, no one in Middle Region could shake his position as the #1 prodigy. The Emperor's existence made the Vermilion Bird Dynasty even more ambitious. They wanted to use the emperor's power to expand the Vermilion Bird dynasty's territory. In the martial god continent, the emperor's reputation was not lower than the Kunlun holy sons. Therefore, when they saw the emperor's arrival, everyone present stood up and looked forward. They also wanted to see what kind of existence this so-called number one prodigy of Middle Region was. Even Jun Haoyin and Tao Xian looked at each other and stood up. This action was enough to give the emperor enough face. The emperor's arrival this time represented the Vermilion Bird dynasty behind him. As the most ancient dynasty in Middle Region, the Langya Holy Land naturally had to give it enough respect. But in the next moment, the clouds and the void trembled. Endless heaven and earth Yuan Qi vibrated, sweeping across 1,000 miles. Then golden heavenly dragons slowly appeared one after another, shuttling in the void continuously. With such an aura, even an ordinary Transcendence Realm elite would have to retreat 3 miles. Although they had not seen the emperor in person, the domineering aura of a king filled the void, and the domineering aura had already penetrated deep into everyone's hearts. Boom. At this moment, it was as if heaven and earth were about to split open. Amidst the clouds, a man in a golden python robe slowly walked out. The man's body exuded a peerless aura. His entire person was majestic, and there was a vast amount of true yuan surging around him. Just like that, the man walked down from the void step by step. Behind him, there were 2 elders following. Judging from the aura of the 2 elders, they were 2 ancient giants at the immortal longevity realm. At this moment, the 2 ancient giants followed closely behind the Son of Heaven. Their attitude was extremely respectful. Soon, the emperor walked directly to the center of the square. He slowly looked at Tao Xin, cupped his hands slightly and said, "Junior Emperor greets the Holy Lord of Langya." After all, Tao Xin was the Holy Lord of Langya sacred ground, and his strength was incomparably powerful. In the previous battle, Tao Xin even displayed the peerless cultivation of the immortal longevity realm. With such an existence, no matter how arrogant the emperor was, he had to lower his head in front of Tao Xian. Hearing this, Tao Xian nodded and did not say anything. Seeing this, the emperor smiled slightly and did not care at all. Then he looked at Jun Haoyin who was beside Tao Xian. At this moment, Jun Haoyin was dressed in the Holy Sun's robe, and his aura was even more graceful and noble. A powerful aura that belonged to a proud son of heaven emerged from his body. At this moment, Jun Haoyin's aura was otherworldly and peerless. He was like a true son of God and no one could ignore him. Looking at Jun Haoyin, the emperor, the number one genius of Central Plains, cupped his hands slightly again and said with a smile on his face, "This must be the holy son of Hao Tian. I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. I've been friends with you for a long time in Central Plains. Meeting you today, you really live up to your reputation." The emperor directly expressed his goodwill as soon as he opened his mouth. When Jun Haoyin heard this, a smile appeared on his face and he nodded at Tianzi. He did not feel a trace of hostility from the emperor. "I've also been friends with your highness for a long time. If there's a chance, I'll definitely drink with you." Since the other party had given him face, Jun Haoyin naturally wouldn't refuse to give him face. Moreover, at this moment, the 5 decay of heaven and man was descending. One more friend meant one more strength. Chapter 215. Tianzi's eyes lit up when he heard Jun Haoyin's words. He thought to himself that the holy son of Hao Tian was not as arrogant as he was rumored to be. He had always appreciated Jun Haoyin's strength and talent. Now that he saw Jun Haoyin's attitude, he had a better impression of Jun Haoyin. "Haha, since the holy son of Hao Tian invited me, I will definitely accept." After saying that, Tianzi left with the people behind him. However, he did not return to his seat. Instead, he walked slowly to the Linglong sacred leader. "Greetings, Linglong sacred leader." The Linglong sacred leader was the most powerful person in Eastern Wilderness. Even Tianzi had to lower his head in front of her. He knew that the Linglong sacred leader in front of him was just a clone. Of course, Tianzi was also impressed by the legendary woman in front of him. He did not dare to slack off. Moreover, his father, the sovereign of the Vermilion Bird dynasty, was also the most powerful person in Middle Region. He also admired the Linglong sacred leader. Tianzi remembered clearly that his father had said that the Linglong sacred leader was not a match for the Linglong sacred leader even if the 4 sovereigns of Middle Region worked together. From this, it could be seen how terrifying this woman's strength was. Furthermore, Tianzi had also found out some secrets about the 5 decay of heavens and humans. Therefore he was eager to rope in the Langya sacred ground and the Linglong sacred leader. He hoped that he could have 2 more helpers when he fought against the 5 decay of heavens and humans. The Linglong sacred leader nodded slightly when she heard Tianzi's words. She did not say anything. In fact, although Tianzi's performance was impressive, he was far from Jun Haotian's. Although the Linglong sacred leader was a little cold, Tianzi did not seem to mind at all. He then returned to his seat and closed his eyes to rest. Then, the powerful people from the various forces in Eastern Wilderness, the sects, the itinerant cultivators in Middle Region, and the demon race in Southern Region arrived. They all rushed to the Langia Sacred Ground to participate in the grand event held by the Langia Sacred Ground. The Langia Sacred Ground held a grand event that attracted people from the Middle Plains, Southern Border and Eastern Barren. This scene could not help but make people feel a trace of unusualness. Perhaps only the Kunlun Holy Land, the #1 holy land of the human race, had such rallying power. It could be seen that the Langia Holy Land now had its own prestige. It was even comparable to the Kunlun Holy Land. During this period of time, the martial artists who came to participate in the grand meeting had varying strengths. Only the lords of the sacred grounds and peerless geniuses were qualified to make the Langia Sacred Ground announce their arrival. As for some rogue cultivators, they just directly sent congratulatory gifts. No one paid attention to them at all. This was how the world worked. If you weren't strong enough, people wouldn't even bother to remember your name. Just like that, more and more people joined the event. Soon, the number of people reached tens of thousands. These people came from all over the martial god continent. Other than the Kunlun Holy Land, almost all the other holy lands of the Eastern Wilderness had come. Furthermore, the Linglong Saint Master and the Jade Lake Saint Master had brought their saintesses along. This action was enough to show how much importance they attached to the Langia Holy Land. At this moment, the central square of the Langia Holy Land was already filled with guests. It felt like the entire world had come to greet them. The Langia Grand Meeting could be considered to be very successful. However, the influence that the Langia Holy Land displayed had even surpassed the #1 holy land of the human race, the Kunlun Holy Land. At this moment, a powerful energy fluctuation suddenly surged in the void. Feeling this fluctuation, everyone's gaze once again turned to the void. That is? In the next moment, everyone was shocked. Some rogue cultivators were even more shocked. Thousands of auspicious clouds gathered in the void in the distance. Boundless Bodhi light burst out from the auspicious clouds and swept across the land. Buddhist light. People from the Western Desert Buddhist sect were here too. Golden lotuses continued to fall from the void, making the entire place seem like a Buddhist holy land. In the void there was also a secret Buddhist voice. When the Buddhist voice entered one's ears, it was like being enlightened. Every syllable seemed to be able to enlighten one. Endless Buddhist light appeared and swept across the entire place. This scene caused everyone present to be incomparably astonished. At the same time, fear rose in their hearts. Why are people from the Buddhist sect here too? Didn't the Buddhist sect not interact with Central Plains, Eastern Wilderness and Southern Border? Why are they here at the Langia Holy Land? Could it be that the Langia Holy Land invited them? But why are the Buddhists here? Since we don't know, let's just wait and see. Who knows, this Buddhist sect might be here to cause trouble. Seeing the Buddhist sect appear, the martial artists present could not stop talking. In their hearts, the Western Desert Buddhist sect was too mysterious. For hundreds of thousands of years, the Buddhist sect had never taken the initiative to contact the outside world. And the disciples of the Buddhist sect rarely left the Western Desert to be active in the outside world. Usually, the Buddhist sect disciples seen in the outside world were not orthodox. Basically, they were all lay disciples of the Buddhist sect. Therefore, when they saw the Buddhist sect disciples appear at the Langia Holy Land, everyone present was shocked. At this moment, most people thought that the Buddhist sect was here to cause trouble. After all, not many people knew that Jun Haoyan had once entered the small Thunderclap Temple. But there were also some people who thought that the influence of the Langia Holy Land had expanded and that even the Buddhist sect of the Western Desert had to show respect and participate in the grand event. When the various holy lords saw the Buddhist sect disciples, they frowned slightly. They had never come into contact with the Buddhist sect and were equally shocked. As for Tao Xian, he looked at the Buddhist light in the void and seemed to have thought of something. Then he looked at Jun Haoyan. Previously, Jun Haoyan had recounted his experience in the Western Desert. Tao Xian naturally knew that Jun Haoyan had benefited greatly from the Buddhist sect. The small Thunderclap Temple had shown great kindness to Jun Haoyan and even gave Jun Haoyan the relic of the temple. Now that the Buddhist sect had come to participate in the Langia Grand event, Tao Xian was certain that the Buddhist sect was here for Jun Haoyan. However, Jun Haoyan looked at the Buddhist light in the void and frowned slightly. From the aura in the void, he could tell that the Buddhist sect was not from the small Thunderclap Temple. In the Western Desert, he was only familiar with the small Thunderclap Temple. He was not so narcissistic that the other Buddhist sects would give him face. Indeed, in the next moment, a voice came from the endless Buddhist light. I am Jin Luan. Greetings, benefactors. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, I am Jin Luan. Greetings, benefactors. A loud and clear voice carrying Buddhist chants came out from the Buddhist light. Hearing this voice, the expressions of everyone present were shaken. Then everyone stood up and looked at the Buddhist light in disbelief. The Arhat. Jin Luan. The Arhat of the Titanium Temple. The number one genius of the Western Desert. Jin Luan, who was known as the reincarnation of the Buddha. This status was not much different from the holy lords of the human Holy Land. Moreover, the Buddhist sect had a close relationship with the Pure Land and was extremely mysterious. Take Jin Luan the Arhat for example. He was known as the number one genius of the Western Desert. However, other than the Western Desert Buddhist sect, no one had ever seen this Arhat's face. Moreover, this was the Arhat of the Titanium Temple. What kind of existence was the Titanium Temple? The most powerful Buddhist sect in the Western Desert. It was also the most orthodox Buddhist legacy left behind in the Pure Land. It was said that no one knew how long the Titanium Temple had existed in the Wuxian continent. According to the ancient records, the Titanium Temple had existed since the ancient times. At that time, the Titanium Temple had more than 10 terrifying Buddhas. In front of the Titanium Temple, even the Kunlun Holy Land and the Vermilion Bird Dynasty were inferior. This was a terrifying existence that could not be ignored. But now, the Arhat of the Titanium Temple had personally come to the Langya sacred ground. At that moment, even the number one genius of the Central Plains, the Son of Heaven, raised his head and looked at the Buddhist light with a serious expression. In the entire Langya sacred ground square, other than the Linglong Holy Lord who was still calm, everyone else was shocked. However, in the next moment, another rumbling sound came from the void. Then endless Buddhist light shot out again. Then, in front of everyone's eyes, a golden lotus platform slowly appeared in the void. The golden lotus platform had 12 layers and was surrounded by dazzling Buddhist light. At that moment, an ordinary-looking young monk was sitting on top of the golden lotus platform. The young monk had his palms together. He did not look stunning at all and looked very ordinary. He was like an ordinary mortal that would be hard to notice if thrown into a crowd. However, what shocked everyone was that, after they saw this young monk, they could not recall his face when they turned around. Although the young monk's performance was very ordinary, no one present dared to underestimate him in the slightest. This was because an extremely terrifying scene was appearing behind these youths and the others. At that moment, ancient temples appeared behind the young monk and soared into the sky. In those endless ancient temples, there were tens of thousands of ancient monks chanting sutras and countless mortals worshipping them. It was as if a vast Buddhist kingdom had appeared before everyone's eyes. However, this young monk actually had a total of 3,000 Buddhist kingdoms behind him. Just by staring at it for a while, he felt like he was going to convert to Buddhism. This golden wheel is really not simple. At such a young age, he has already successfully cultivated the 3,000 Buddhist kingdoms' divine ability. At this moment, Linglong Saint, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke. Her voice was very soft, but she revealed the origin of this divine ability. As the number one expert in the Eastern Wilderness, he was at the pinnacle of the Martial God continent. The Linglong Saint Lord had been to every corner of the Martial God continent. She could even come and go freely in the mysterious Western Desert. Some of the lost secrets could not be hidden from her. Master, what does the 3,000 Buddhist kingdoms refer to? Luo Qingxue, who was sitting beside Linglong Saint, asked curiously. Linglong Saint smiled when she heard the question from her favorite disciple. She immediately explained, the Nirvana world is the origin of Buddhism. Rumor has it that there was an invincible monk in the ancient times called Amitabha. He once made a great wish to the heavens that all 3,000 worlds would become Buddhism's pure land and that everyone would have Buddha in their hearts. This was the origin of the 3,000 Buddhist kingdoms. All 3,000 worlds would become Buddhism's pure land? Everyone would have Buddha in their hearts? Everyone gasped when they heard Linglong Saint's explanation. If this great wish came true, would there be any other cultivators in the 3,000 worlds? Would they not all become Buddhism's disciples? Master, what happened after that? His great wish must have failed, right? Luo Qingxue asked when she heard that. Although Buddhism was powerful in the 3,000 worlds, it was far from being able to dominate the world. Obviously, the great wish of the Buddhist elite did not come true. Although the great wish of the Buddhist elite did not come true, he still reached the unparalleled realm and became one of the supreme beings in the deity realm. One of the supreme beings in the deity realm. Hearing this, Luo Qingxue was shocked to the extreme. In the 3,000 worlds, supremes were already the most powerful beings. How terrifying would the supreme beings in the deity realm be? Master, do you mean that the 3,000 Buddhist kingdoms was created by that supreme being? Luo Qingxue asked Linglong Saint Master again. However, Linglong Saint shook her head when she heard that. She continued in a soft voice, how could that supreme existence's divine ability be passed down so easily? This divine ability of the 3,000 Buddhist kingdoms was created by an extraordinary Buddha in accordance with the will of Amitabha Buddha. A divine ability created by a Buddha. Luo Qingxue was still shocked when she heard that. A divine ability created by a Buddha was not to be underestimated. She asked again, what's the name of this Buddha? That Buddha's name is Mahavairakana. Linglong Saint looked at Luo Qingxue affectionately and said slowly, Mahavairakana. Upon hearing this, everyone present looked at the young monk in shock. This was because they had heard from the Western Desert that this Buddha had a golden wheel. He seemed to be the reincarnation of Mahavairakana. However, when Jun Haoyin heard this, what he thought of was completely different from what everyone else had thought. Amitabha, Mahavairakana, Mount Tai, Penglai, what's the connection between them? Jun Haoyin could not help but feel suspicious when he heard those familiar names from his previous life. If there were only one or two of them, Jun Haoyin could still say that it was a coincidence. However, too many things from his previous life had appeared in this world. Jun Haoyin could not help but feel suspicious. At that moment, Jun Haoyin looked at Buddha Jin Luan with a question in his mind. Why were the people from the Titanium Temple here? Why was the Lesser Lane Temple that he was most familiar with not here? Could it be that something had happened to the Lesser Lane Temple? Just as Jun Haoyin was puzzled, Buddha Jin Luan suddenly retracted his aura and turned into an ordinary monk. He walked slowly to Tao Xian and Jun Haoyin, put his palms together and said, Greetings, Holy Lord Langya. Dao Yen nodded slowly when he saw this and he didn't say anything. The next moment, Jin Luan suddenly looked at Jun Haoyin. There was a strange look in his eyes. Chapter 216. Not only were the others surprised, but Jun Haoyin was also a little confused. He was sure that he had never seen this Arhat of the Vajra Temple before. Holy son of Haoyin, after the event, can you talk to me alone? After that, Jin Luan did not beat around the bush and directly stated his purpose. Everyone present heard his words. Seeing this, the 7 temple masters and elders of the Haoyin sacred ground all frowned slightly. Obviously, they were a little disgusted by Jin Luan's intimacy. For hundreds of thousands of years, the warriors of the Wuxian continent had been wary of the Buddhists of the Western Desert. The Buddhists' power of purification was even more chilling. Now Jin Luan suddenly expressed his intimacy with the holy son of Haoyin. The elders and temple masters of the Haoyin sacred ground all thought that Jin Luan was going to harm Jun Haoyin. At this moment they stared at Jin Luan sharply, and a hint of hostility flashed in their eyes. It was not their fault. One should know that Jun Haoyin was too important to the current Haoyin sacred ground. He was no longer just the holy son of the Langya sacred ground. Everyone already regarded him as the true ruler of the Langya sacred ground in the future. If anything happened to him now, the Langya sacred ground would not be able to bear the consequences. Of course, if it were other forces. For example, the holy son of the 7 sacred grounds of the East continent, or the crown prince of the 4 empires of Middle-earth. If these prodigies wanted to be alone with Jun Haoyin, they would not care at all. This was because they knew that the Holy Sun and the Crown Prince's methods could not do anything to the Holy Son of Haoyin. However, it was different for the Buddhists of the Western Desert. Since ancient times, the Buddhists had always been mysterious to outsiders. Other forces knew very little about the methods of the Buddhists. The ancient books recorded the only great battle between the Buddhists and the Eastern wilderness. However, in that battle, the Buddhists did not send out a single soldier, and the great sect disappeared directly. Even the sect leader of the great sect converted to the Buddhists. Such a method could be said to be extremely strange. How could it not cause shock and fear? That was why the temple masters and grand elders of the Langya sacred ground were unhappy when they saw Arhat Jin expressing his desire for peace to Jun Haoyin. In their hearts, they were afraid that the golden wheel would harm Jun Haoyin. Although they didn't want to see Jun Haoyin and Jin Luan getting close to each other. However, with Jun Haoyin's current status, they couldn't directly refuse. Instead, they quietly waited for Jun Haotian's reply. Jun Haotian looked at the golden wheel and said, "How can I refuse the Golden Dragon Buddha's invitation? I also have something I want to ask the Buddha." Looking at this scene, Jun Haotian suddenly thought of Master Xuanzang and felt a little amused. Back in the Linglong sacred ground, Grandmaster Xuanzang had also invited him to a private meeting. Could it be that the Buddhists all like to talk to others alone? Jun Haotian wanted to ask about the legend of Amitabha and Vairocana. These secrets couldn't be found anywhere else. He had to ask the Buddhists personally. After his experience in the Western Desert, Jun Haotian didn't think that the Buddhists were that scary. "I wouldn't dare. In that case, I will wait for the Holy Sun's arrival." Arhat Jin Luan put his palms together and smiled humbly. He was very polite. However, Jin Luan's politeness was very dangerous in the eyes of others. They all thought that the financial world was hiding a knife behind a smile. It wasn't as simple as it seemed. After all, the Buddhists of the Western Desert had been famous for more than 10 years. After Arhat Jin Luan finished speaking, he went straight to his seat. Originally, the Langya Sacred Assembly didn't prepare a seat for the Western Desert Buddhists. However, since the Buddhists of the Western Desert had come, there would be other true disciples prepared. Jun Haotian didn't have to worry about that, because the appearance of Arhat Jin Luan made the entire Langya Sacred Assembly fall silent. However, another group of people came to participate soon. The atmosphere returned to its previous state. Gradually, no one paid attention to Arhat Jin Luan. As more and more people came to participate, the entire central square of the Langya Sacred Assembly was crowded. It was very noisy. It could be said that the Langya Sacred Assembly was very successful this time. Basically, everyone who should be here was here. Even those who shouldn't be here were here. However, as time passed, the Holy Lord of Langya and Tao Xian kept frowning. It was almost time for the Langya Sacred Assembly to start, but no one from the Kunlun Sacred Assembly had come. Not to mention the Holy Sun and the Saintess, even some elders and palace masters didn't come. This scene made Tao Xian's face turn gloomy. There had always been some friction between the Kunlun Sacred Assembly and the Bluetooth Sacred Assembly. Although they weren't as incompatible as the Linglong Sacred Assembly, they still didn't like each other. However, Tao Xian didn't expect that no one from the Kunlun Sacred Assembly would come to such an occasion. They didn't give any face to the Langya Sacred Assembly. It seemed that the Kunlun Sacred Assembly didn't plan to interact with the Langya Sacred Assembly. Even the connection on the surface had been severed. Jun Haotian didn't have any thoughts when he saw this. Whether the Kunlun Sacred Assembly participated or not didn't have much to do with him. Because of Baiming Han, Jun Haotian would definitely be on the opposite side of the Kunlun Sacred Assembly in the future. Especially those with the surname Ji. During this time, Jun Haotian had already found out. In the Kunlun Sacred Assembly, the Ji bloodline had an extraordinary status in the Kunlun Sacred Assembly. 30,000 years had passed. Jun Haotian didn't know what status Ji Yunhan had in the Kunlun Sacred Assembly or if she was still alive. However, he had already found out that the current Kunlun Sacred Assembly's Ji Wushuang was Ji Yunhan's descendant. The Kunlun Holy Son Ji Wushuang was the direct descendant of the Kunlun Sacred Assembly's Ji Yunhan who betrayed Baiming Han back then. Jun Haotian swore to avenge Baiming Han back then. This also meant that one day he would be on the opposite side of the Kunlun Holy Sun. All of this was destined when Baiming Han gave him the 7-treasure Bodhi tree. At this moment, a roar came from the void. Then the Langya Sacred Assembly's protective array appeared once again. This meant that the welcoming phase of the event had ended. Next, the real event would begin. At this moment, only the Kunlun Sacred Assembly's people hadn't arrived. Seeing this, Tao Xian didn't care so much anymore. Since the Kunlun Sacred Assembly didn't give him any face, he didn't need to wait anymore. Moreover, with the current strength of the Langya Sacred Assembly and the suppression of 2 supreme weapons, if a fight really broke out, the Kunlun Sacred Assembly wouldn't be afraid. The main theme of this event was, of course, Luo Tian, Qing Yun, and Yao Guang clarifying the matter regarding Jun Haotian falling into the demon path. Then, the new 3 Holy Lords stood up and said that these were the previous Holy Lords who had distorted the truth and slandered Jun Haotian. They also said that the 3 Holy Lands were guilty. In order to atone for their sins, they would be led by the Langya Sacred Assembly from now on. The next step was a speech by the Holy Lord of Langya, Tao Xian. Of course, this was all just a formality. It was also the usual procedure of every sacred assembly. Then Tao Xian announced in public that when Jun Haotian broke through to the immortal realm, he would take over the position of the Holy Lord of Langya. This sentence completely shocked everyone present. Previously, when they saw Jun Haoyin's position, they already had some guesses in their hearts. However, when they heard Tao Xian's confirmation, they couldn't help but be shocked. This was the position of the Holy Lord of a sacred ground. So many people dreamed of this position. Now, it was confirmed by Jun Haoyin just like that. However, everyone present was in a high position. After a short period of shock, they quickly recovered. The Holy Son of Hao Tian was confirmed to be the next Holy Lord of Langya. This news was enough to make the Holy Son of Hao Tian the most powerful person among the younger generation of the Wuxian continent. One should know that even the current Eastern Wilderness #1 genius, the Holy Son of Kunlun, didn't receive such treatment. However, no one present doubted Jun Haoyin's strength. During the battle that day, Jun Haoyin had used the blood of 3 holy lords and 2 demon giants to prove his unparalleled strength. With his strength, he was indeed qualified to do so. Next, it was time for the disciples of the various forces to spar with each other. It was also a good thing. True disciples, core disciples, and inner disciples were all allowed to participate. If they were willing, even Holy Sun-level existences could participate in the competition. Of course, the current Jun Haoyin no longer needed this method to prove his strength. He looked at the eager disciples of the various forces in the square and felt a little bored. With his current strength, if he were to participate, not many present would be his opponent. Other than Arhat Jin Luin and the crown prince of the Vermilion Bird dynasty, even the older generation powerhouses would find it difficult to suppress him. Obviously, everyone present was aware of this situation, so no one asked him to participate. However, at this moment, a voice suddenly appeared in Jun Haoyin's mind. Holy Son of Hao Tian, can we meet alone? Chapter 2. Emperor. When Jun Haoyin heard this, he didn't look at Arhat Jin Luin. This was because this sentence didn't come from Jin Luin, but from the crown prince of the Vermilion Bird dynasty. Emperor. In the next moment, Jun Haoyin slowly turned around and looked at the emperor in the distance. At this moment, the emperor was also smiling as he looked at Jun Haoyin. His expression was very kind as he nodded slightly at Jun Haoyin. In response, Jun Haoyin naturally had no reason to refuse, so he immediately replied through telepathy. Let's have a chat at the Heavenly Mountain. After saying this, Jun Haoyin stood up and greeted Tao Xian, who was beside him. Holy Lord, I have to leave for a while. On the other hand, Dao Yin did not even turn his head. He merely nodded his head gently. Go ahead. Do whatever you want to do. We'll take care of everything here. The Langya Grand Banquet could be attended by him, the Holy Lord of Langya. It didn't matter whether the Holy Lord was present or not. Hearing this, Jun Haoyin bowed, then turned into a stream of light and quickly disappeared from the square. The guests present didn't pay much attention to this scene and continued to admire the battle in the square. At this moment, in the Langya Sacred Ground Square, there were scenes of elite disciples from various sects fighting. It could be considered to be extraordinarily brilliant. Of course, as the host, the Langya Sacred Ground naturally took out a corresponding prize as the prize for this battle. Anyone who achieved a good result in this competition would receive an extraordinary reward. This battle added a layer of fun to the grand banquet and didn't seem so boring. After Jun Haoyin left, the emperor gave some instructions to the people around him, then turned into a stream of light and disappeared from the square. At this moment, Jin Luin, who was originally sitting on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes. He looked at the disappearing Jun Haoyin and pondered for a moment, but didn't get up. He knew in his heart that it wasn't the right time yet. If he met Jun Haoyin rashly, it would only cause him to be annoyed and counterproductive. Although he was the holy son of Buddhism, no one had come to greet him since he came here. It couldn't be helped. To the martial artists in the eastern wilderness and central region, Buddhism in the western desert always represented mystery and danger. Because of this, naturally, no one came to look for trouble. They were all afraid in their hearts. What if they got close to this monk and were unknowingly converted to Buddhism by him? What would they do? Thinking of this, everyone present distanced themselves from Jin Luin and didn't dare to get close to him. Jin Luin looked at this scene and slowly shook his head. He knew in his heart that the people in the eastern wilderness and central region had a deep misunderstanding of Buddhism. However, there was nothing he could do about it. These matters were not something that could be explained in a few words. But in the summer, Jin Luin decided to stay for a while longer before going directly to Jun Haoyin. At this moment in the temple of Hao Tian Godly Peak. Not long after Jun Haoyin stepped into the temple of Hao Tian, the Son of Heaven followed closely behind. Haha, I finally left that place. Ever since I was young, I hated this kind of occasion the most. If it wasn't for my father forcing me to come, plus my curiosity about you, the holy son of Hao Tian, I definitely wouldn't have come to this so-called grand occasion. The Son of Heaven complained the moment he stepped into the temple of Hao Tian. It seemed like he didn't like that kind of occasion. However, as the crown prince of the Vermilion Bird dynasty and the top prodigy of Central Region, he had to attend this kind of occasion. After hearing the Son of Heaven's complaints, Jun Haoyan wanted to laugh and looked at him in surprise. It was completely different from what he had imagined. The crown prince of the Vermilion Bird dynasty, the top prodigy of Central Region, wasn't that arrogant. After the Son of Heaven stepped into the temple of Hao Tian, he completely threw away his previous dignity and was just like an ordinary young man. Moreover, from the Son of Heaven's words just now, Jun Haoyan could also tell. This Son of Heaven was also a man of character. One had to admit that Jun Haoyan had misjudged him on this point. Disregarding everything else, just the domineering name of the Son of Heaven was enough to make people fearful. Moreover, legend had it that the crown prince of the Vermilion Bird dynasty had unparalleled talent since young. His strength was unparalleled, and he had the charisma of a peerless emperor. Anyone who heard this would feel that the Son of Heaven was a very dignified person. Chapter 217. Of course, all of this had no effect on Jun Haoyan. When he heard the emperor's words, he couldn't help but laugh. The crown prince is right. I don't really like that kind of occasion either. You can even call me by my name. I don't really want to be the crown prince or whatever. As for the emperor or whatever, that's all. Perhaps because there was no one else at the moment, the emperor's attitude was very casual. Even his tone was nonchalant. He didn't even care about the position of crown prince or emperor. Luckily, the one standing in front of him was Jun Haoyan. If it were anyone else, they would probably be shocked to hear his rebellious words. The Vermilion Bird dynasty was the #1 ancient dynasty in the Central Plains. It ruled over hundreds of millions of miles of mountains and rivers, controlling countless living beings. As the emperor of the Vermilion Bird dynasty, he could decide the life and death of countless living beings with a single thought. However, such a noble position didn't seem to be much in front of the emperor. However, after hearing the emperor's words, Jun Haoyan looked at him in a different light. Since that's the case, then I won't hold back, Brother Xia. My name is Jun Haoyan. You can also call me by my name. Jun Haoyan said with a smile on his face. The Vermilion Bird dynasty's royal family was surnamed Xia, so the emperor was also surnamed Xia. Emperor Xia. Ah, good. I like to deal with people like Brother Haoyan. Hearing that, the emperor couldn't help but laugh. However, the emperor quickly retracted his smile. He looked at Jun Haoyan with a frown. I believe Brother Haoyan should also know about what happened in the Vermilion Bird dynasty. The emperor was naturally referring to the matter of Mount Tai. Jun Haoyan nodded when he heard that. He already knew that the emperor wanted to talk to him alone. Naturally, he wouldn't talk nonsense with him. Right now, something that the emperor valued so much. It was none other than Mount Tai that had undergone a change in the Vermilion Bird dynasty. I've heard about the internal affairs of the Vermilion Bird dynasty. That's right, I know very little. I wonder if Brother Xia has any specific information? Jun Haoyan said slowly as he looked at the emperor. Hearing this, Tianzi frowned slightly. What happened at Mount Tai was extremely weird, so he didn't want to talk about it. Seeing this, Jun Haoyan's eyes flashed and he spoke again. Of course, if Brother Xia has any difficulties, you don't have to say it. I can understand. Since Mount Tai had appeared within the Vermilion Bird dynasty, the Vermilion Bird dynasty naturally had the deepest understanding of Mount Tai. However, in the Vermilion Bird dynasty, this was naturally a secret. If Tianzi was unwilling to say more, Jun Haoyan naturally wouldn't force him. Besides, he also felt that Tianzi was a good person and could be friends with him. Perhaps it would be of some help to him in this great calamity? Haha, Brother Haoyan must be joking. What's wrong with that? To be honest, I came to the Langya sacred ground to discuss this matter with Brother Haoyan. Hearing Jun Haoyan's words, Emperor Xia waved his hand and said nonchalantly. He was very forthright. Then, without hesitation, he told Jun Haoyan about it. A moment later, he revealed all the secrets that had happened in Mount Tai. These secrets were unknown to the other major forces. Although martial artists couldn't enter Mount Tai, I sent a large number of mortals into Mount Tai. Speaking of which, it's strange. I don't know what restrictions are in Mount Tai, but even treasures can't be used. Instead, some mortal weapons can be used inside. In order to investigate the secrets in Mount Tai, I sent a total of 100,000 mortals into Mount Tai. Hearing this, Jun Haoyan couldn't help but be shocked. 100,000 mortals into Mount Tai. This vermilion bird dynasty was really generous. At the same time, Jun Haoyan couldn't help but sigh at the sad fate of mortals in this world. 100,000 mortals were driven into Mount Tai like weeds. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. However, Jun Haoyan had to admit that the Vermilion Bird Dynasty's method was pretty good. With so many mortals entering, the Vermilion Bird Dynasty would probably be able to obtain many secrets about Mount Tai. Of course, with the Vermilion Bird Dynasty's foundation, in order to achieve their goal. Not to mention 100,000 mortals, even if it was 1 million or 10 million mortals, they wouldn't hesitate. With so many people entering Mount Tai, the Vermilion Bird Dynasty should know many secrets about Mount Tai. Thinking of this, Jun Haoyan suddenly looked at Emperor Tianzi and said slowly. Hearing this, Emperor Xia didn't hide anything. At that moment, Emperor Xia said directly, "From those mortals we found out that in Mount Tai, some figures can often be seen worshipping the heavens. In addition, we also found out that there's an extremely mysterious force surrounding Mount Tai. According to the mortals' description, this force seems to be building an altar. Regarding this, the mortals said that they couldn't see it clearly and could only see an outline." At this point, Emperor Xia paused for a moment. After looking at Jun Haoyan, he continued, "I reported this to my father. He said that after the altar is completed, it will be time to explore the secrets of Mount Tai." Chapter 2 Small Lane Temple Destroyed. Altar? Hearing this, Jun Haoyan's heart was filled with doubts. After the altar is completed, it will be time to explore the secrets of Mount Tai. Emperor Xia's words shocked Jun Haoyan even more. He had long guessed that Mount Tai was not that simple. The information that the Langya sacred ground received was too one-sided. The Vermilion Bird Dynasty was indeed the #1 dynasty in the Central Plains. In such a short period of time, they were able to obtain so many secrets. Even Jun Haoyan was a little surprised at this point. Until now, Mount Tai had risen tens of thousands of feet and reached the outer region. It was still the center of attention of the entire martial god continent. Almost every faction wanted to see the secrets hidden in Mount Tai. However, there was a barrier in Mount Tai. Within a radius of 10,000 meters, martial artists could not enter. Once a martial artist tried to force his way in, he would be unable to use the origin energy in his body. He would gradually be lost in Mount Tai and would never be able to come out. According to Emperor Xia, one could not even use their treasures in Mount Tai. At this point, the number of martial artists guarding Mount Tai had reached 1 million. They all wanted to enter Mount Tai. According to the people who entered Mount Tai was a place where the ancient dynasty offered sacrifices to heaven and earth and prayed to the gods in ancient times. It was very likely that there was a legacy left behind by the gods at the peak of Mount Tai. If one could obtain it, they could immediately become a paragon and break through the void. Jun Haoyan did not believe this saying. However, he could not rule out the existence of such a possibility. From Emperor Xia's words, Jun Haoyan also knew that the barrier of Mount Tai might be opened in the future. When that time came, it would be time to truly explore Mount Tai. "Oh right, Brother Xia, what does the altar you mentioned look like? Can you tell me about it?" Suddenly, Jun Haoyan thought of the altar that Emperor Xia mentioned. He had a feeling that the altar would be very important to explore Mount Tai. However, Emperor Xia frowned when he heard Jun Haoyan's question. It was not that he did not want to say. It was because he could not answer this question. Although mortals can enter Mount Tai, they do not have the ability to climb the mountain. They can only roughly see the outline of the altar. Emperor Xia could only express his helplessness towards this question. Until now, they still did not know what the altar looked like. "Brother Haoyan, this is all the secrets I know about Mount Tai." At this moment, Emperor Xia looked at Jun Haoyan. His gaze was very open. Clearly, there was nothing left to hide from Jun Haoyan. After all, those who could enter Mount Tai were all mortals. The secrets that they could know were naturally very limited. For Xia Qinzi to be able to reveal so much to Jun Haoyan, he had already shown enough sincerity. "Hehe Haoyan, thank you for your honesty, Brother Xia. However, I would like to ask if the Vermilion Bird Dynasty has already told this news to many people?" At this moment, Jun Haoyan looked at Emperor Xia meaningfully and spoke slowly. He did not believe that the Vermilion Bird Dynasty's crown prince would tell him everything about such an important matter after only meeting once. Unless this was already a piece of news on the streets. Hearing this, Emperor Xia did not deny it at all and nodded directly. Although these secrets are difficult to find out, they can't be hidden for long to some of the major forces. It's better to do a favor and tell them honestly. However, the reason why I'm looking for Brother Haoyan this time is actually because after Mount Tai opens, I hope that Brother Haoyan can form an alliance with me and explore Mount Tai together. Then Emperor Xia spoke again and revealed his purpose. He hoped to form an alliance with Jun Haoyan when Mount Tai opens. When Jun Haoyan heard this, he did not immediately agree. He looked at Emperor Xia strangely and asked, "With Brother Xia's strength, how many people in the Wuxian continent can compete with you? Why do you need to form an alliance with me?" When Emperor Xia appeared in the Langya sacred ground, Jun Haoyan could already sense that his cultivation was at the peak of the Transcendence realm. Such a realm was enough to dominate the younger generation. Moreover, through his powerful soul power, Jun Haoyan could even sense the vitality in Emperor Xia's body. It could be said to be incomparably dense. With such a foundation, even the average immortal longevity realm cultivator would not be a match for Emperor Xia. The number one prodigy of the central region was not an undeserved reputation. Currently, on the martial god continent, the few geniuses who stood at the very top were almost at the same level. Whoever could cross this line first would become the number one prodigy of the Wuxian continent. Even the Buddhists of the Western Desert were included. Therefore, under such circumstances, logically speaking, Emperor Xia did not need to form an alliance with anyone. With the Vermilion Bird dynasty behind him, with such a strong foundation, even the Kunlun sacred ground could fight head-on. However, when Emperor Xia heard this, he shook his head. "Brother Haoyan, you may not know, but my father once said that after Mount Tai opens, any immortal longevity realm cultivator will not be able to enter Mount Tai. Moreover, you should also know that the 5 decay of heaven and man is about to descend. The Chancellor of the Vermilion Bird dynasty once declared that the day Mount Tai opens will be the day when the elites of the other continents descend." At this moment, Emperor Xia's expression was very serious. When he mentioned the 5 decay of heaven and man, his expression also became serious. On the day Mount Tai opened, the elites of the other continents would directly arrive. Hearing this, Jun Haoyan was shocked. Could it be that Mount Tai had something to do with the 5 decay of heaven and man? "So, the reason you want to join forces with me is to fight against the peerless prodigies from the other continents?" At this moment, Jun Haoyan looked at Emperor Xia with a very serious expression. With his current strength, he was confident that no one in the 3,000 worlds would be a match for him. However, there were mountains beyond mountains and towers beyond towers. There was always a higher mountain. Having no opponents did not mean that he would not encounter danger. Joining forces with a peerless prodigy like Emperor Xia was not a bad idea. Moreover, the secret of Mount Tai was obviously not that simple. At this thought, Jun Haoyan looked at Emperor Xia and slowly nodded. "All right, Brother Xia. I agree to join forces with you." "Ah, great." Hearing Jun Haoyan's words, Emperor Xia's eyes could not help but light up. He believed that with Jun Haoyan's participation, he would have greater confidence in the exploration of Mount Tai this time. However, in the next moment, Jun Haoyan and Emperor Xia both looked outside the main hall. In the next moment, a majestic and unparalleled aura suddenly erupted from the two of them. For a moment, the entire main hall was filled with some rumbling sounds. "Amit Ba, I did not intend to hear the conversation between the two of you." As soon as he said that, Jin Luan, the arhat of the Titanium Temple, slowly walked out. In an instant, the aura that erupted from Jun Haoyan and Emperor Xia's body was completely suppressed. At this moment, Jin Luan was standing in the main hall with his hands clasped together and his mouth chanting scriptures. "You bald donkey, eavesdropping on others' conversation. Isn't that a violation of the Buddhist precepts?" Emperor Xia pointed at Jin Luan and scolded him directly. His tone was extremely arrogant. If it were anyone else, they would not dare to be so arrogant in front of the strange and mysterious Buddhist sect. He even dared to say the word bald donkey. Seeing that, Jun Haoyan smiled slightly. His eyes were also fixed on Jin Luan, waiting to see how he would explain himself. "Amit Ba, I overheard it by accident. It's not my fault if it was unintentional. I believe that the Buddha will forgive me." Facing Emperor Xia's insults, Jin Luan was not angry at all and spoke slowly. Perhaps, from the beginning to the end, he did not take the emperor's words seriously. "Don't worry, the two of you. The Buddhist sect will not participate in the mystery of Mount Tai." As if afraid that the two of them would not believe him, Jin Luan explained again. In response, Emperor Xia's lips moved as if he wanted to say something. However, Jun Haoyan stopped him directly. He knew in his heart that since Jin Luan was the arhat of the Vajra temple, he could not be lying. Therefore, he looked at Jin Luan and said slowly, "I wonder what brings you here, arhat? One would not visit a temple without a cause." Jun Haoyan did not believe that this monk would be fine after chasing him. When Jin Luan heard Jun Haoyan's words, he first sighed, then chanted a Buddhist proclamation and said slowly, Holy Son of Jun Haotian, the Lesser Thunderclap Temple has been destroyed. Chapter 218. The Small Lane Temple had been destroyed. When Jin Luan said this, not only Jun Haotian, but even Emperor Xia looked at him in shock. This news was too shocking for them. What kind of place was the Small Lane Temple? It was one of the three major Buddhist sects in the Western Desert. It had hundreds of thousands of years of history and was comparable to the 7 sacred grounds of the Eastern Wilderness. Although there was no supreme weapon in the Buddhist sects, the Small Lane Temple had once produced a supreme Buddha. It definitely had a trump card that could rival a supreme weapon. But now Jin Luan had said that the Small Lane Temple had been destroyed. This news was simply too inconceivable. No one would have believed it if it had come from an ordinary person. They might even have laughed at it. But now this news was personally announced by Jin Luan, the Arhat of the Vajra Temple. Monks did not lie. How could Jin Luan the Arhat lie? Moreover, the 3 major Buddhist sects in the Western Desert had always been united. Even if there was some conflict, it was about Buddhism. It was not like the 7 sacred grounds of the human race, where there was constant infighting. They would go to war for small benefits. To the Buddhist sects, there was no such thing as framing each other. Therefore, what Jinluan Arhat said was most likely true. However, the destruction of the Small Lane Temple was too shocking. This was comparable to the destruction of a sacred ground of the human race. Even Emperor Xia had a look of disbelief on his face. Although he was the top prodigy of the central region, he knew how terrifying the Buddhist sects in the Western Desert were. But now, the Small Lane Temple, one of the 3 major Buddhist sects, had been destroyed just like that. Wasn't this a little too shocking? Jin Luan, what is going on? After a moment of silence, Jun Haotian looked at Jin Luan and asked in a grave tone. He clearly remembered that everything was fine when he left the Small Lane Temple. There was no danger in the Small Lane Temple, and Lord Fazhen and the divine monk were all normal. There was no sign of the destruction of the sect. But he had only left for less than a month, and the Small Lane Temple had been destroyed. Furthermore, during this entire process, not a single trace of information was leaked out. If Jinluan Bodhisattva had not come to inform him today, he would have been kept in the dark. The connection between the Western Desert and the other regions was basically cut off, and news spread even more slowly. However, the Small Lane Temple was one of the 3 great Buddhist sects of the Western Desert. This was definitely a major event that would shock the entire martial god continent. However, judging from the current situation, he and Xia Qianzi were the first people in the Eastern Wilderness to know about this. As the Holy Son of the Langya Holy Land, whenever something big happened on the mainland, someone would report to him. But now, the destruction of the Small Lane Temple was never mentioned. He needed Jinluan Arhat to personally inform him of this news. In the Western Desert, the Small Thunder Temple had given Jun Haotian many benefits. Therefore, Jun Haotian had already made up his mind to investigate this matter thoroughly. At this moment in the main hall, Jinluan Arhat heard Jun Haotian's question and sighed softly. The Titanium Temple has also investigated the destruction of the Small Lane Temple, but we did not find anything. Now, the area within 10,000 miles of the Small Lane Temple is covered by a mysterious fog. My master and I personally went to the Small Lane Temple to investigate, but when we arrived, the entire Small Lane Temple had disappeared, leaving behind a bottomless abyss. Jinluan Arhat spoke slowly, his tone very conflicted. To be honest, Jun Haotian was not the only one who could not believe what he had seen. As the Arhat of the Titanium Temple, he did not know when the Small Lane Temple had been destroyed. Even he was a little frightened by this situation. Silently, the entire Small Lane Temple had been destroyed right under the noses of the other 2 great Buddhist sects. This kind of method was enough to make everyone terrified. Even his master, the abbot of the Titanium Temple, did not notice anything strange. The entire Small Lane Temple had disappeared, leaving behind a bottomless abyss. After that, Jinluan Arhat sent many people to search for the disciples of the Small Lane Temple. However, they did not find anything. All this meant that the entire Small Lane Temple had been destroyed. Other than this, there was no other explanation. After hearing Jinluan Arhat's explanation, Jun Haotian frowned. A great power comparable to the Holy Lands had actually disappeared without a trace just like that? No one would believe this news even if it was spread. Alright, is the change in the Small Lane Temple related to the changes in the Middle Continent and Eastern Wilderness? At this moment, Jun Haotian suddenly thought of Mount Tai and Penglai. Although these changes happened in 2 different places, they happened at the same time. All of them were filled with strangeness. Now that the same strange change had happened in the Western Desert, Jun Haoyin could not help but think of the connection between them. When Emperor Xia heard this, he nodded in agreement. That is possible. However, if these three changes were related, the situation might be even worse. This meant that the current martial god continent could have such changes at any time. Even parts of the land. My master also mentioned this before. He said that there is an 80 to 90% chance that there is a connection between these three anomalies. However, even he could not figure out what the connection is. Jinluan Arhat said slowly, acknowledging Jun Haoyin's words. Recently, there had been a lot of changes in the martial god continent. It was beyond everyone's expectations, let alone the Western Desert. Even the 4 imperial lords of the Middle Continent and the 7 holy masters of the Eastern Wilderness could not figure out the origin of these changes. Everyone had a feeling that this was a sign of a great calamity. A calamity that would sweep across the entire martial god continent, a calamity that no cultivator could avoid. Until now, 3 regions on the martial god continent had already undergone major changes. Now, only the Northern Sea and the southern border were left. Needless to say, the Northern Sea was where the demon race was sealed. Apart from Emperor Realm powerhouses, no one could enter. As for the southern border monster race, there was no news yet. However, in Jun Haoyin's opinion, it was not far away. Is the Arhat here to ask me to go to the Western Desert? Jun Haoyin asked slowly. The Titanium Temple probably knew about his relationship with the small Thundersound Temple. Otherwise, they would not have come to find him personally. If it were not for this, the Western Desert Arhat, who had always been isolated from the world, would not have appeared at the Langya Grand event. Jinluan Arhat did not deny this. He said bluntly, that's right. The holy son of Hao Tian recited the Mahayana Buddha in the Western Desert. This is a great merit. It is not difficult for him to attain the Buddha realm. This change is very likely to endanger the entire Western Desert. Therefore, my master asked me to come and ask the holy son of Hao Tian for help. Jinluan Arhat, who was the top genius of the Western Desert, bowed slowly to Jun Haoyin. This attitude was enough to prove his sincerity. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Seeing this scene, the Emperor of Heavenly Summer was shocked to the extreme. What did the holy son of Hao Tian do to make the Western Desert Arhat ask him for help? However, the Emperor of Heavenly Xia was certain that he had found the right person. The holy son of Hao Tian was more powerful than he had imagined. However, he soon realized that if Jun Haoyin went to the Western Desert with Jinluan Arhat, there would be no one to work with him after Mount Tai opened. The Emperor of Heavenly Xia was anxious. He took a step forward and said to Jinluan Arhat, "No, Brother Haoyin just agreed to go to Mount Tai with me. He cannot go to the Western Desert with you." No matter how powerful Xia Tianzi was, he would not dare to take the risk without Jun Haoyin's accompaniment when facing Mount Tai's strangeness. The Emperor of Heavenly Xia would not allow Jinluan Arhat to take Jun Haoyin with him. Amit Ba, this concerns the billions of lives in the Western Desert. I hope you can understand. Jinluan Arhat said solemnly. After all, Buddhist disciples were not the only ones in the entire Western Desert. There were also countless mortals. Jun Haoyin felt helpless when he saw the two of them acting this way. In fact, in Jun Haoyin's heart, whether it was the mystery of Mount Tai or the changes in the Western Desert, he wanted to investigate both. However, these two things were happening at the same time. It was difficult for him to choose. Humph, what does the Western Desert have to do with me? Haoyin must go to Heartland with me. The Emperor of Heavenly Xia did not back down in the face of Jinluan Arhat's moral coercion. Suddenly, the Emperor of Heavenly Xia's expression changed drastically. Oh no! The Emperor of Heavenly Xia's expression was extremely ugly. He looked shocked. Jun Haoyin and Jinluan Arhat looked at each other in confusion. The Emperor of Heavenly Xia took out a jade talisman. Tao Xian light flowed on the jade talisman. It was extremely dazzling. Clearly, this jade talisman was a good treasure. Just now, my father sent me a message. He said that the martial god continent's world barrier and mark of respect are gradually weakening. The world barrier is also thinning. The paragon mark had disappeared and the world barrier was thinning. This meant that martial artists from other continents could enter the martial god continent at will. The martial god continent would be exposed to the other continents. The other continents had known the martial god continent's location a long time ago. However, the martial god continent was still in the top 10 of the 3,000 worlds back then. At that time, the martial god continent's world barrier was very thick. The powerful martial artists from other continents could not break through the world barrier. Moreover, every paragon would add their mark to the world barrier to prevent the powerful martial artists from other continents from spying on them. Therefore, it was impossible for the powerful martial artists from other continents to enter the martial god continent. The most powerful martial artists in the realm of deities were the paragons. Unless a living paragon was still alive, no one could break through the paragon mark in the world barrier. The strongest outsider would have the supreme mark in the world barrier obstructing him more intensely. For example, the divine monster continent could only send an immortal realm martial artist like Demon King Jiao. That was the limit. Emperor realm martial artists could not enter the martial god continent. Moreover, every time an outsider entered the martial god continent, they had to pay a heavy price. Under such circumstances, the powerful martial artists from other continents naturally did not dare to enter the martial god continent easily. At that moment, the paragon mark and the world barrier of the martial god continent were weakening. This meant that the powerful martial artists from other continents would be able to enter the martial god continent easily. When the 5 decay of the heavens descended, the paragon mark and the world barrier would completely disappear. At that time, the powerful martial artists from other continents would not have any difficulty entering the martial god continent. They could come and go as they pleased. And now, things were developing in this direction. Mount Tai is about to open. The true calamity of the martial god continent is about to descend. At that moment, Emperor Xia looked at Jun Haoyin and Jinluan Arhat with a serious expression. His relaxed demeanor from before had completely disappeared. No matter what, as people from the martial god continent, they naturally did not want some outsiders to destroy this place. When the 5 decay of the heavens descended, their opponents would be the peerless geniuses from other continents. How did it happen so quickly? Jinluan Arhat was stunned when he heard that. This was clearly beyond his expectations. As for the 5 decay of the heavens, everyone present knew about it, so there was no need for too much explanation. Originally, according to their estimation, there should be a year or a few months before the true calamity descended. Judging from the current situation, the calamity had arrived earlier. I'm not too sure about this either, but according to my father's estimation, Mount Tai will open in 7 days. Emperor Xia shook his head when he heard that. He only looked at Jun Haoyin and Jinluan Arhat. In the next instant, dragon roars could be heard from Emperor Xia's body. Golden heavenly dragons slowly circled around his body. His entire body exuded the aura of an emperor, as if he had become high and mighty. The terrifying aura that he exuded was especially intimidating. It made people want to bow down and worship him. It was extremely terrifying. Jinluan Arhat, Brother Haoyin must come with me. I hope you can understand. At that moment, Emperor Xia's aura was like a rainbow, suppressing Jinluan Arhat. If Jinluan Bodhisattva said no, he would attack immediately. Right now, the number 1 prodigy of the central continent and the number 1 prodigy of the western desert were clashing. Could happen at any moment. Amit Ba, Almsgiver Xia, you don't have to do this. Before we came, Master said that the holy son of Haoyin only needs to reach the western desert within a month. Within this month, the Titanium Temple and Shenkong Temple will do our best to control the abyss at the small Layin Temple. Jinluan Arhat did not show any intention of fighting against Emperor Xia's might. He only looked at Jun Haoyin calmly and spoke slowly. According to the Vermilion Bird Emperor's estimation, Mount Tai would open in 7 days. Therefore there was no conflict between these two matters. Why didn't you say so earlier? Emperor Xia was taken aback when he heard that. He immediately retracted his aura and resumed his lazy demeanor. Chapter 219. Haha, it was all a misunderstanding. I hope you don't take offense. Actually, I've always admired the Arhat's character. At that moment, Emperor Xia's imperial aura was nowhere to be seen. Instead, he exuded a treacherous aura. Jinluan was taken aback when he heard Emperor Xia's words. Even Jun Haoyin did not know whether to laugh or cry when he saw Emperor Xia's sudden change in attitude. No one would have expected that Emperor Xia, the number 1 prodigy of the central region, who was born with the aura of an emperor, would be such a shameless person. However, it was also because of Emperor Xia's unpretentious attitude that the 3 of them felt much better. At least, in Jun Haoyin's eyes, Emperor Xia and Jinluan were people worth befriending. At the same time, to Emperor Xia and Jinluan, Jun Haoyin was an extremely unfathomable person. In that case, it's settled. 7 days later, I'll head to Mount Tai with Brother Xia. I'll head to the western desert after I'm done with Mount Tai. Jun Haoyin finally made up his mind after a moment's thought. Jin Luan and Emperor Xia naturally did not have any objections. The two of them nodded in satisfaction. Now the three of them were on the same side for the time being. In the face of the heavenly decay, they naturally knew that their enemies from now on would be peerless prodigies from various major worlds. Among these prodigies, there would even be those who were ranked in the top 10 of the 3,000 worlds. They did not dare to let their guard down in the face of this. In that case, I've completed my mission this time. I wanted to drink with the two of you, but now that the calamity is coming, the Western Desert will not be exempt. We still need to prepare well. At that moment, Jin Luan spoke with a regretful tone. You Buddhists can drink too? Emperor Xia was shocked when he heard that. Would the holy son of Buddhism in front of him violate the rules of Buddhism? Wine and meat pass through the intestines, but the Buddha stays in the heart. Once you've comprehended Buddhism to the deepest level, you don't need to care about this at all. Arhat Jin Luan chuckled when he heard that. Although Arhat Jin Luan's tone was casual, it was very convincing. I didn't think that the Arhat would have such a side to him. No matter, there will be plenty of time in the future. After this calamity, we will have plenty of opportunities. At this moment, Jun Haoyin looked at the two of them and could not help but ask. After this conversation, the relationship between the few of them instantly became much closer. These three represented the strongest geniuses of the martial god continent. They had become friends. On the path of cultivation, on the path to becoming a supreme sovereign. Not only were there troublesome enemies, but there were also companions who were fighting alongside him. Alright, it's a deal then, Emperor Xia said with a smile. After that, the three of them chatted for a while. After that, Arhat Jinluan was the first to bid farewell, saying that he had to return to the Western Desert to prepare in advance. As for Xia Tianzi, he stayed for a short while before taking his leave. He repeatedly reminded Jun Haoyin not to forget their agreement. Mount Tai was about to open, so he naturally had to go back and make some preparations. As for Jun Haoyin, he stayed in the Great Heaven Palace to cultivate, quietly waiting for the Great Trial to descend. The weakening of the Supreme Seal and the thinning of the world barrier naturally could not be kept a secret for long. As expected, not long after Arhat Jinluan and Emperor Xia left, the Holy Lord of Langya, Tao Xian, arrived at the Great Heaven Palace. Tao Xian went straight to Jun Haoyin and said with a complicated expression, "The great trial that you mentioned might really be coming," Tao Xian said as soon as he stepped into the Great Heaven Palace. At this moment he looked at Jun Haoyin with a solemn expression. As the sacred lord of a sacred land, Tao Xian naturally knew about the Supreme Seal and the World Barrier. He was also very familiar with the Supreme Seal and the World Barrier. The moment the Supreme Seal and the World Barrier changed, Tao Xian also sensed it. He was not any slower than the Vermilion Bird Emperor. After sensing these changes, Tao Xian's expression changed drastically. According to the records of the martial god continent, once this happened, it would be a sign of the Great Trial. At this moment, the Langya Sacred Land's Central Plaza was still in progress. However, no one realized that the Linglong Sacred Lord, the Jade Lake Sacred Lord, and the others had already left. People from the other forces also stood up to leave. Everything happened so suddenly that no one could react in time. Fortunately, the Great Trial was almost done, so Tao Xian did not pay attention to these things. At this moment, their focus was on the Great Trial that was about to come. Everyone knew that this calamity was related to all of them. Everyone had to treat this Great Trial seriously. How are our preparations? Jun Haoyin had already guessed Tao Xian's intention and immediately asked. Previously, Jun Haoyin had already ordered the Langya Sacred Land to prepare for the Great Trial. Fortunately, they were prepared in advance and were not in a hurry like the other forces. Almost. The spirit arrays inside the Sacred Land have all been reinforced and are being suppressed by the Langya Mountain and River diagram. Now, unless an Emperor Realm Master descends with a supreme artifact, it is impossible to break through the defenses of the Langya Sacred Land. As for the disciples, they were too scattered previously. It will be difficult to summon all of them back to the Sacred Land in such a short time. Tao Xian spoke slowly and explained the preparations made by the Langya Sacred Land during this time. They were actually using a supreme artifact to suppress the Sacred Land's defensive spirit arrays. If this was in normal times, it would be impossible to do so. Because if a supreme artifact was used to suppress the spirit arrays, it would mean that everyone's foundation was put into defense. However, in a great battle, unparalleled defense alone was useless. However, the current Langya Sacred Land was different from the past. Even if they used the Langya Mountain and River diagram to suppress the spirit arrays, they still had the without beginning bell in Jun Haoyin's hands. The current Langya sacred ground did not need to be as constrained by offensive power as it was in the past. The supreme foundation of the two supreme artifacts was enough to make up for any shortcomings. Hearing Tao Xian's words, Jun Haoyin nodded slowly. Now the most important thing was to summon all the Langya disciples who were outside. After the arrival of this great calamity, except for the sacred land, everywhere else was full of danger. However, Jun Haoyin knew in his heart that even if the sacred land had the two supreme artifacts to suppress it, it would only be able to defend for a while. Now, the supreme mark and the world barrier were slowly disappearing. No one knew what kind of terrifying existence would descend when these things that protected the martial god continent completely disappeared. Under such circumstances, the best way is to ensure our own strength. In addition, I also received news that Mount Tai will open in 7 days. At that time, cultivators will be able to enter. At that time, I'm afraid that people from other continents will not let go of this opportunity. During this time, we don't do anything but sit quietly and watch the outside world. Jun Haoyin continued and slowly told the news he heard from Emperor Xia. Hearing this, Tao Xian nodded, somewhat understanding. In fact, the changes in the martial god continent were something that even a supreme being could not stop. Now, all they could do was wait quietly for the calamity to descend. I understand what you said. Also, when you and Emperor Xia explore Mount Tai, you must be extremely careful. Looking at the calm Jun Haoyin, Tao Xian reminded him worriedly. At that time, their opponents would be the geniuses from other continents. Among them, there might even be terrifying existences of the immortal stage 5. Therefore, no matter what, they had to be extra careful this time. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. In the outside world, in the martial god continent, the supreme mark and the world barrier were rapidly weakening. Once this news was released, it spread throughout the entire martial god continent in just 1 day. It had reached a stage where everyone knew about it. After hearing this news, countless forces trembled in fear, afraid that this calamity would affect them. At the same time, several top forces in Eastern Wilderness, Central Plains, Southern Border, and other regions made a temporary agreement. During this period, no matter what grudges they had to put aside first. The most important thing now was to face the invaders from other continents. Now, it seemed that in the face of this calamity, all the forces in the martial god continent were very united. This point was not bad at all. At this moment, the Vermilion Bird Dynasty publicly announced that Mount Tai would open in a few days. Moreover, the Vermilion Bird Dynasty invited all the forces in the martial god continent to enter Mount Tai with them to search for opportunities. When this news was released, the entire continent was in an uproar. Of course, this news was intentionally leaked by Emperor Xia, so many major forces already knew about it. They also knew that the changes in Mount Tai were related to this impending calamity. There must be something magical about it. In the face of such an opportunity, even the Vermilion Bird Dynasty could not monopolize it. Therefore, choosing to let all the forces enter together was the best choice. On the second day after the Langya Grand Banquet ended, the void of the martial god continent also changed. In the past, the stars that were billions of miles away from the ground would only shine with boundless light. But now, the stars that were originally invisible to the naked eye were actually descending at this moment. They were incomparably huge and surrounded the entire martial god continent. After some observation, the various forces came to a conclusion. This was not because the sun, moon, and stars had become bigger, but because they were closer to the martial god continent. Just like this, the news that the apocalypse was about to descend on the martial god continent spread more and more widely. Some people even said that this was the punishment that the gods of the god realm were about to send down and destroy the entire martial god continent. In short, the entire martial god continent was now in a state of panic. Then, on the third day after the Langya Grand Banquet ended, above the martial god continent, waves of extremely terrifying storms suddenly erupted and swept through the entire world. Some of the experts could see that there were shadows floating within the storm. Among them, the aura emitted from each shadow was extremely terrifying as they stood above the void. At this moment, the entire martial god continent's sky seemed to be about to shatter. In the storm, more and more shadows appeared. Everyone knew that those shadows were the experts from other worlds who were about to descend on the martial god continent. At this moment, the entire martial god continent had completely changed and countless people were in a state of panic. At this moment, the native forces of the martial god continent began to welcome the experts from other continents. As for the top forces like the Gu dynasty and the human sacred grounds, they chose to watch coldly from the sidelines. As for these experts from other continents, they did not take the initiative to attack them. This was because they knew very well that this group of people was just a group of pathfinders. Behind them there would probably be an endless stream of experts descending. At that time, the truly terrifying existence would descend. And this was also what the sacred grounds and the Gu dynasty were truly afraid of. On the 4th day after the Langya Grand Banquet ended, a shocking piece of news spread from Middle-earth. The new crown prince of the Azure Dragon dynasty had been defeated by a young genius from the Moke continent in one move. Once this news spread, the entire martial god continent was shocked. The new crown prince of the Azure Dragon dynasty was definitely ranked in the top 10 among the martial god continent's geniuses. After the previous crown prince had died at the hands of Jun Haotian, this new crown prince had ascended to the position of crown prince with his powerful strength. His reputation was extremely famous in Middle-earth. His strength was enough to be ranked in the top 5 among the Middle-earth's young geniuses. Although he was not as monstrous as Emperor Xia, he could definitely be considered a top-notch genius. But now, he had actually been defeated by a genius from the Moke continent in one move. Moreover, both of them were in the Dharma phase realm. Defeated by someone of the same cultivation level in one move. Once this news spread, all the martial god continent's geniuses were shocked and began discussing this matter. But what they did not expect was that this time, it was merely the opening. According to the statistics, a total of 100 geniuses had descended on the martial god continent this time. They were from the fantasy spirit continent, the immortal cultivation continent, the immeasurable continent, and the Moke continent. And almost all of these continents were ranked in the top 10 among the 3,000 worlds. No matter how one looked at it, their worlds were stronger than the martial god continents. Next, the crown prince of the Azure Dragon dynasty was defeated. Then, the Black Tortoise dynasty's King Wuqing and the White Tiger dynasty's King Shenwu were both defeated on the same day. And the Vermilion Bird dynasty's eldest prince, a peerless genius second only to Emperor Xia in Middle-earth, was also defeated by a genius from the immeasurable continent. At the same time, many geniuses in southern border were also defeated by geniuses from other continents. Of course, the situation in eastern wilderness was not any better. The new holy sun of the all-heaven sacred ground, Azure Cloud Sacred Ground, and Wavering Light Sacred Ground were all defeated. In addition, many of the strongest disciples of the major sects were also defeated. Just like that, the rumor that the geniuses from other continents easily defeated the martial god continent's geniuses began to spread. Faced with the crushing defeat of the martial god continent's geniuses, the other geniuses who had descended on the martial god continent also began to clamor. They claimed that the martial god continent had completely declined and that no one had the strength to fight. Especially the younger generation, they were even more powerless to fight back. Hearing these declarations, some of the martial god continent's geniuses were immediately dissatisfied. "Humph, you dare to speak so arrogantly after defeating us? Our martial god continent's top geniuses, Emperor Xia, Kunlun's holy son, and Vast Heaven's holy son, haven't even made a move yet." That's right. These are the strongest geniuses of our martial god continent. They represent the strongest strength of the younger generation. Chapter 220. If you have the ability, go challenge these peerless prodigies. They are the true top prodigies of Wuxia continent. Seeing the prodigies from other continents crushing the local prodigies, some people could not take it anymore and exposed Jun Haotian and the others. After that, everyone who was humiliated by the prodigies from other continents retaliated in the same way. They mocked the prodigies from other continents for only picking on the weak. Top prodigies? They're just undeserving of their reputation. Other than the Kunlun sacred ground, the Holy Sun and Emperor Xia are just ants. The prodigy from the Boundless continent who had defeated the Vermilion Bird dynasty's crown prince immediately spoke up in response to the ridicule of the Wuxia continent's losers. That's right. The current Wuxia continent is no longer the Wuxia continent that was just born. The prodigy from the Moke continent also chimed in. Just like that, when the prodigies from other continents had just arrived, there was a huge conflict between the two sides. However, the Holy Sun, Emperor Xia, and the others simply ignored such provocative words. At the same time, these prodigies from other continents announced that they would participate in the opening of Mount Tai in a few days and enter together to search for opportunities. Once this news was out, many factions on Wuxia continent immediately objected. They all agreed that Mount Tai belonged to Wuxia continent and only the prodigies of Wuxia continent. People from other continents were not allowed to touch it. Another day passed in the midst of this debate. On that day, the Vermilion Bird dynasty announced that the fated ones would obtain the opportunity. Regardless of which world the prodigies were from, anyone who wanted to enter Mount Tai could enter. Many factions on Wuxian continent were dumbfounded when they heard this news. They all thought to themselves, what's wrong with the Vermilion Bird dynasty? Only a few top factions knew that those who had come to Wuxian continent were merely explorers. Behind them, there were even more powerful prodigies who had yet to arrive. Those factions that were far more powerful than dynasties and sacred grounds were currently outside Wuxian continent, eyeing it covetously. When the supreme mark and world barrier weakened again, it would be time for them to enter Wuxian continent. After understanding this, the top factions also understood that a trip to Mount Tai would not change anything. Therefore, it was not worth falling out with these people over Mount Tai. Of course, while compromising, the various great forces were secretly accumulating strength to deal with the great calamity. After the Vermilion Bird dynasty agreed, all the prodigies from the outside world immediately gathered in the direction of the Heartlands. Before they came, their elders had warned them repeatedly that they had to pay attention to the changes that had occurred in the martial god continent during this period of time. It was extremely likely that it contained a supreme opportunity, and obtaining it would allow one to ascend to the heavens in a single bound. Therefore, the exploration of Mount Tai was extremely important to them. During this period of time, the geniuses of the other realms had been facing the geniuses of the martial god continent with a lofty attitude. At the same time, the geniuses of the Moke world and the boundless world also issued a declaration. He said that he wanted to challenge the strongest genius of the martial god continent. They planned to use the final result to prove that the Wuxian continent had completely declined. The top 10 continents of ancient times were no longer as glorious as they used to be. These arrogant words made the martial god continent's geniuses feel somewhat powerless. Although they were furious, they had to admit that these geniuses from other continents were much stronger than them. At this moment, they were all looking forward to Jun Haoyan and the other strongest geniuses coming out to fight with them and reclaim some of their dignity. However, the counterattack they were looking forward to never came. Then, something that shocked everyone happened. After Kunlun's holy son Ji Wushuang came out of seclusion, he actually announced in public, "Welcome to the martial god continent." Upon hearing this, many of the martial god continent's geniuses were stunned. They had never imagined that the so-called number one genius of the eastern wilderness, Kunlun's holy son, would actually support the geniuses of the other realms in such a high-profile manner. This scene not only made the martial god continent's geniuses fall silent. If even the strongest genius of the martial god continent did not dare to fight with the geniuses of the other realms, wouldn't that be indirectly admitting that the martial god continent was inferior to the other continents? Although they were very dissatisfied with Kunlun's holy son's actions, the martial god continent had always been the ruler of the martial god continent. However, the Kunlun Holy Land had always been arrogant and lawless. They did not care about what others thought. In response to Kunlun's holy son's words, the geniuses of the other realms also began to respond. They claimed that only Kunlun's holy son was the true genius of the martial god continent. The others, such as Haoyan's holy son and Emperor Xia, were not even worth mentioning. At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Haoyan's holy son and Emperor Xia. However, to everyone's disappointment, Haoyan's holy son and Emperor Xia, who had always been known for being overbearing, did not make any moves. They did not retaliate at all. Everyone wondered if these two geniuses, like Kunlun's holy son, did not want to offend the geniuses of the other continents? Just like that, the days passed. Finally, it was the day before Mount Tai opened. Everyone waited in vain, and the martial god continent's geniuses were extremely disappointed. A piece of incomparably exhilarating news came out. Haoyan's holy son of the Langyas sacred ground had already walked out of the sacred ground and was heading towards Middle Earth. For a moment, everyone began to get excited. They were all looking forward to the arrival of this unprecedented battle. Although Jun Haoyan had kept a low profile when he left the Langyas sacred ground, countless people's eyes were focused on him at this moment. After all, in all these years, Haoyan's holy son was the most outstanding genius. Whether it was Kunlun's holy son, Ji Wushuang, or the Vermilion Bird dynasty's crown prince, Emperor Xia, they were all peerless geniuses who had long been famous. And Haoyan's holy son was a rising star. In terms of who received the most attention, it was undoubtedly Haoyan's holy son. Other than him, there was no one else. Therefore, after hearing that Haoyan's holy son had left the Langyas sacred ground and was heading towards Middle Earth, countless people began to look forward to it. In everyone's opinion, although Haoyan's holy son was going to participate in the exploration of Mount Tai, the battle with the geniuses of the other continents was unavoidable. That was because those geniuses from the other continents had long been waiting to defeat Hao Yin's Holy Sun to establish their dominance. Hao Yin's Holy Sun's battle immediately attracted the attention of countless people. Countless martial artists rushed towards Middle-earth when they heard the news. At this moment, Mount Tai in Middle-earth's Vermilion Bird Dynasty's territory had undoubtedly become the most lively place in Wuxian continent. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless fantasy translation. Above the ethereal void, endless layers of clouds lingered. From time to time, there would be flashes of golden light shooting out from the thick layers of clouds, dazzling everyone's eyes. A vast aura descended from the clouds, emanating a terrifying aura. High up in the sky, within the layers of clouds, 10 dragon-blooded heavenly horses were rapidly moving through the void. Every dragon-blooded heavenly horse exuded a terrifying bloodline power. It was extremely terrifying. If this scene was seen by others, they would definitely be horrified. That was because these 10 dragon-blooded heavenly horses exuded an extremely terrifying aura. Each dragon-blooded horse was at least Yuan Dan realm. If they were in the Holy Lands, they would be considered true disciples. But now, these 10 Yuan Dan dragon-blooded heavenly horses were gathered together just to pull a golden jade carriage. Inside this golden jade carriage was naturally Jun Haotian. Holy Sun, now everyone in Wuxian continent is looking forward to your battle with the other world's prodigies. In the golden jade carriage, Feng Xiaoyao, Dugu Bo, Bailey Xuanzi, and the others looked at Jun Haotian with incomparable respect. This golden jade carriage was a treasure. The interior space was very large and there was no problem for it to accommodate hundreds of people. This level of treasure was related to the laws of space. Only an undying world king could refine such a treasure. The challenges of the other continents' prodigies against Wuxian continent's native prodigies had caused a huge conflict. Now, a large number of prodigies from Middle-earth and Eastern Wilderness had been defeated, and the other continents' prodigies were constantly mocking them. Under the current situation, the Wuxian continent's people appeared to be rather dispirited. Everyone's hearts were filled with anticipation. They hoped that someone could bring about a victory to motivate them. Kunlun's Holy Sun's actions of showing goodwill to the other continent's prodigies had already caused many people in Wuxian continent to be dissatisfied. They had also lost hope in Kunlun's Holy Sun. At this moment, they could only place their hopes on Hao Tian's Holy Sun and Emperor Xia. As for Western Desert and Southern Border, they did not take them into consideration. Western Desert had never interfered in the affairs of the outside world, and they would not participate in such matters. Southern Border's number 1 prodigy, Prince Jiao, had already been killed by Hao Tian's Holy Sun. There was no other prodigy to fight. Moreover, even if Prince Jiao was still alive, he would not fight. At the end of the day, Prince Jiao could only be considered a prodigy of Divine Monster Continent. He had nothing to do with Wuxian Continent. Under such circumstances, Hao Tian's Holy Sun, who had unparalleled strength, instantly became everyone's hope. At this moment, Jun Haotian heard Feng Xiaoyao and the others' words and laughed softly, not caring at all. Don't worry. This time I will definitely fight with them. Hearing that, Feng Xiaoyao and the others were instantly excited. Although they were disciples of the Langya Sacred Ground, and everything they did was for the benefit of the Langya Sacred Ground. However, they were also members of Wuxian Continent. Now that the prodigies of other continents were insulting Wuxian Continent, they naturally felt unhappy. If Hao Tian's Holy Sun could defeat those prodigies, they would naturally feel proud and elated. In Jun Haotian's mind, he already had a plan for this battle. Unlike Feng Xiaoyao and the others with Jun Haotian's current status, he naturally knew some things that ordinary people did not know. Kunlun's Holy Sun had expressed goodwill to the prodigies of other continents because there was an inside story. Kunlun's Holy Sun, who was known as the number 1 prodigy of the human race, had actually reached an agreement with those foreign powerhouses. As for the contents of the agreement, Jun Haotian naturally did not know. He did not care to know either. However, at this moment they had pointed the spearhead at him. Their motive was obvious. Since they had made the first move, they could not blame him. Taking a beating without retaliating was not Jun Haotian's usual style. Moreover, these so-called foreign prodigies had been acting like tyrants in Wuxian Continent during this period, which made him very unhappy. With his current strength, he was very confident that he was invincible among the younger generation of Wuxian Continent. This would indeed lose some of the fun. However, now that the prodigies of other continents had arrived, it was a good opportunity for Jun Haotian to test his own strength. Therefore, Jun Haotian had no reason to reject the other party's provocation. Holy Sun, we should only be 4 hours away from Mount Tai. Rumor has it that Mount Tai will be completely open tonight. At this moment, martial artists are allowed to enter within a radius of 10,000 meters of Mount Tai. Feng Xiaoyao sat next to Jun Haoyin and kept recounting what had happened during this period. As the Holy Son of Lengia, Jun Haoyin did not need to personally inquire about such trivial matters. Naturally, someone else would tell him. After hearing Feng Xiaoyao's words, Jun Haoyin nodded slowly. Since Mount Tai allowed martial artists to enter within a radius of 10,000 meters, it meant that the day of Mount Tai's opening was not far away. After a while, Jun Haoyin did not continue chatting with Feng Xiaoyao. Instead, he immersed his divine spirit in his mind. Then he activated the Skyheart Frost technique. Currently, he had cultivated the Skyheart Frost technique to more than 50 lotus marks. His progress had greatly increased. This was all thanks to the 7 treasures Bodhi tree in Jun Haoyin's body. Otherwise, Jun Haoyin would not have been able to cultivate this supreme technique to such a level. This required continuous comprehension and comprehension. More importantly, it required a strong aptitude. In this aspect, he did not think he was weak, but he was not strong either. However, the 7 treasures Bodhi tree as the first spiritual root made up for his shortcomings. Not only did it greatly increase his comprehension, but it also greatly increased his talent. The Bodhi tree was known as the first spiritual root in the Wuxian continent. It was also known as the Tree of Wisdom. It possessed an incomparably powerful force and was incomparably profound. However, even with the help of the 7 treasures Bodhi tree, Jun Haoyin still needed a lot of time to cultivate the Skyheart Frost technique to the extreme. During this period, Jun Haoyin had been cultivating this supreme technique. He was very curious about how terrifying the power of this supreme technique from the goddess of 4 stars would be once it was cultivated to the extreme. Of course, this was a matter for the future. Cultivation also needed to be done step by step. There was no need to rush. Boom. At this moment, the entire golden jade chariot suddenly trembled. Jun Haoyin opened his eyes in an instant. Holy Sun, we've arrived at the boundary of Mount Tai. However, there's a guy in front of us blocking our way. At the same time, Feng Xiaoyao's angry voice was heard as he explained the situation to them. Jun Haoyin's eyes flashed with a golden light. Suddenly, he saw a man in black armor standing in the void not far away, blocking his way forward. There was an extremely terrifying true essence surging around the man. It was extremely violent and it scattered the surrounding clouds. Not far behind him was the famous Mount Tai. At this moment, countless warriors were gathered there. Look, isn't that the Holy Sun's golden jade chariot? Someone actually dares to block his way? I'm afraid you don't know. That man in black armor is a top heaven's pride from Moke continent. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.